Alright, looks like we are live. Welcome to the Humane Mind Live, episode 104. I'm gonna probably butcher this trying to say this, but the U.S. didn't want to get groyped. Lady Liberty should have dressed modestly. Not bad. I probably could have done better on the delivery there. Anyway, this is gonna be almost entirely about the Groypers. Nothing else has really been in the news this week. That's a little bit distracting. My preview keeps refreshing. There's I was telling my brother before we started the stream, the baby balloon of Trump that they've been using at the protests and all that sort of thing. Somebody popped that and got arrested. Emma Watson, Hermione from the Harry Potter films, is apparently in a relationship with herself. So that's what she says about it. That's just, yeah, it used to be one of those fringe things that you'd see somebody making a YouTube video about an article of some crazy left-wing person, some hippie lady with a shaved head who was marrying herself and that sort of thing, and like, haha, these people are crazy. This is a celebrity that is known internationally. Harry Potter is a big franchise, and here we've got one of the stars of that franchise, the main three characters, not in a relationship with somebody. I choose myself. What? So everything that is insane is becoming more and more mainstream. So that's the only real news this week. No new breaking anything about the Trump investigation. Although it's been talked like, oh, this is something big and this is something new, and then nothing. Censorship. I guess this is somewhat newsworthy, but it's newsworthy that we can't talk about because the subject matter. I can talk about the event that's occurring. I can't tell you what is being censored, because if I say what's being censored, YouTube will block the stream. This happened to Beauty in the Beta last night. Other people have been talking about this, mentioning the person who leaked. I'm trying to think of how to word this without, because you can't say certain words. You can say whistleblower.
Does it sound like gravitas?
Gravitas? No. You can talk about Project Veritas and all this sort of things.
Okay.
You cannot talk about a individual involved with Ukraine that rhymes with thistle mower. I'm pretty sure that word is fine because people have been saying that a lot. But anybody saying the name to go along with that,
What, the guy we were talking about a week or two ago?
I don't think I've mentioned the dude's name. It's a dude that they suspect is the guy. Has lots of ties to people, previous administrations and the DOJ, and kind of like, wait a minute, this guy was responsible for the other investigation, and now he's somehow the source of this one.
What are they saying if you bring up that
supposedly,
person's name?
Well, this is confirmation that what people are saying about it is true, because you can say that Oprah Winfrey is the whistleblower, and they won't take your video down. And you can say Vladimir Putin is behind this. You mention this guy's name, people are getting their tweets deleted, people are getting their channels, or videos on their channels privated that they cannot unprivate.
Well, is there a reason for that? Are they stating that it's conspiracy theory?
No, because conspiracy theories are allowed on YouTube, and all they will do is they will put a little disclaimer note underneath it and say, "Oh, climate change is this is the real source." In any video about flat Earth, oh, here's the flat Earthers think this, but here's a real source about. They do stuff about conspiracy theories, so it's not because it's a conspiracy theory. The claim is that it's illegal. and that's what they will say, and everybody else is like, no, it's not. Because no one, because what CBS just fired the Project Veritas whistleblower, right? The one who released the video of that news anchor. Oh, that whistleblower. We can identify that person. No, their identity is out there. I don't remember her name, but she was on an interview with Megan Kelly. So no, but that person everybody knows. That's fine. That's no need to hide that person. This one though, can't have that source identified. Can't have that person questioned.
I thought there were actual protections for first-hand whistleblowers if they are stating, hey, this company says such and such, but that's misleading and incorrect. They actually do this, or they're actually told this, and this is their motto, or this is what they're producing, not what they say.
Yeah,
and you're protected from repercussions, and yet they still get fired.
That right there, they're not. So they can claim that this individual got fired for other reasons. At least that's what it seems like. The news agency, she should be protected. If she was the whistleblower, she should be protected under whistleblower laws. And that corporation should be the Department of Justice would bring litigation against them for wrongful termination. So not only do companies have their own internal policies about this sort of things, usually on file, but there are federal laws regarding whistleblowing. So a whistleblower is not immune from federal prosecution. A whistleblower is immune from lashback from their employer or someone else, like the person who they outed, right? If you're saying this person, so the Matt Lauer incident, right? He got kicked off of his program because he was doing something. He was sexual harassment, where the person who filed the claims, he's been doing this for years. We've known it. The company has been kind of putting it on the down low and protecting him. The people who came out against him, no lashback from the company, but lashback against the person who did the wrong thing. But if Matt Lauer was to go after the people, then that would also be wrong. So they are protected from him, and they are also protected from the company. So, in the Matt Lauer thing, all of the ladies who were accusing Matt Lauer of inappropriate behavior, whistleblowed on that or whatever, they were no negative consequences. Someone who they thought was the leaker on the Project Veritas video fired says, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. I had nothing to do with that. You're attacking an innocent person. Project Veritas releases a memo from the actual leaker saying, nope, they're innocent. I'm someone completely different. I still work here. I still have still have inside access. Okay.
Man.
It's like, yeah, you missed. So, yeah, but the claim that the Ukraine one, the claim that individual is protected, that's, nope. There is no law protecting them because the claim that he's making is against the president, so the president does have the opportunity to face his accuser, or at least should under the regular pursuit of justice, although for some reason they're acting like impeachment is that doesn't count for impeachment. That is the legal law of the land, that you have the right to face your accuser. I mean, it's in the Bill of Rights, but that doesn't apply to the president because he's the president. And I'm like, what? Why not? He's got a right to face his accuser, to hear their accusation, to scrutinize their accusation.
He'll make statements against it or testifying against it and pushing his own stance or viewpoint or whatever it is. You should be able to testify on your own behalf, but if you're not even included, it's just a bunch of people talking behind your back while you're told, keep looking in the corner. You can't listen. This doesn't concern you, even though it's entirely about you.
Yeah. And his legal team, if not him directly, his legal team should have access to the individual to question them. Oh, wait, did he just say what I think he said? oh no, that's definitely true, or that's definitely false. We've got evidence that proves that wrong. All right, that undermines his witness. Oh, he said this. Okay, but right now lawyers can't access it. It's all the prosecution side having access to this individual and releasing it. It's like, oh, this is what they said about you. Oh, looks bad for you. It's like, well, it's all coming from one side. In any civil case or any criminal case, both sides are sharing information back and forth. Both sides have access to that. It's not a one-way street. It's not like I'm being charged for murder and I don't know what evidence they have against me. Well, good luck forming a defense. No, the prosecution has to say, okay, we've got DNA evidence. We have witnesses of you at the crime scene. We've got these. They don't have to identify but they have to say these are the types of evidence we have against you.
But what I think they're doing is playing a very crooked game, where basically they have not. This is not even an official impeachment inquiry. They haven't actually.
It is technically official now.
I thought they had to have a certain vote within the House to start an inquiry.
No, it is they can start the inquiry. They have not started impeachment. Impeachment requires a vote. The inquiry is something they can just do.
To begin an actual inquiry, because from my understanding, if they started an actual impeachment inquiry, the minority party would have access to interview witnesses to bring forth their own testimony, of which right now they can't because this is not.
Yeah, they're saying, so I guess maybe I'm not clear on that because Pelosi did say this is an official inquiry. I think this was last week. But maybe it was an inquiry on whether they should have an inquiry. I don't know.
Essentially, from when this all first came out, the information I was hearing is that if this becomes an official inquiry, as in we are officially investigating, should this go to an should impeachment be considered? So they're just basic fact finding and data gathering. If it's an official inquiry, then the entire House, both parties, have access to witness and testimonies, and they're able to present their own opinions on that. It's basically kind of like what you would see in a trial, saying here's why we think impeachment is relevant here, why it should be pushed forward. Others saying, no, this is false information. So they can put in, both parties would have access to and be able to present their own material. But I think because this is not official, right now it is just the head of the House committee, which would be Schiff and Pelosi, and it's basically all just DNC cronies, since they're the majority in the House. So since it's not official, it's only left up to the committee, the primary House committee, and they are the ones who are doing the investigation. So that's why they kept the doors closed, kept everything private, and why the Republicans have no idea what's going on in there unless they barge their way into one of these sessions. Whereas if this becomes an official inquiry, they now have a reason, or they have a right to have access to and to sit in and listen to testimony, present their own witnesses and their own evidence.
Yeah. So they were supposed to make it official so that way Republicans were allowed in, but the witnesses they would call had to be approved by the chair of that group. Questions that the Republicans asked any witness, the chair could deny the witness from answering, like say, oh, you don't have to answer that, you don't have to answer that, you don't have. So it's kind of so the Republicans were complaining about this, being like, yeah, so what's the point? This is we're allowed to call our own witnesses provided they're approved by Schiff. We're allowed to ask questions, but Schiff gets to determine whether they need to be answered or not. That's not that's against House rules. What is going on? That's not a that's the appearance like you're doing something, like you're being open and honest, but as long as you're saying, oh, well, we get the final say on everything, then this is not appropriate. That's claiming we've got power when we don't.
I mean, especially when you have an extremely partisan hack like Schiff, who just outright lies, has been making stuff up for years, And yet he's the guy that's allowed to say what you can and you should or should not answer when you're a witness giving testimony, or who you can bring up to ask questions. How does That's a very scary position to have someone like him in there. It's very obvious he's not looking out for just truth, trying to, protect the American people from a potential tyrant or whatever. He's just in it for his partisan ackery. He's in there because that's what the DNC wants. That's what his political affiliation wants. So that's what he's doing. He's strong arming it. It's just disgusting. Yep. But I'm guessing that they're playing this game so they have as much power right now to put as much slander and bad, even if it's misinformation, out there about Trump before the 2020 election. So even if this never goes to impeachment, which I doubt it will, even if they officially vote, hey, let's impeach the president, it's us to go through the Senate, and that's not going to fly because that's majority Republican led. And especially with the way the DNC has been handling this part of the investigation, I don't think Republicans are going to sit there and say, yep, all seems fair and square. We'll vote along with you guys. Doesn't make any sense. So I think they're just in it to try and get as much of their story out ahead of any opposing facts or information. And then the media, when other information does come out, and it does come out, Republicans have their own witnesses and basically say, hey, we've debunked all this. None of this is true. These witness statements are false. The news is just not going to report on it. Or if they do, it's not going to be as heavily as they have so far with the beginning of the impeachment. So it's just a big smear campaign to try and get as much of their story out first. That way it's all in the public eye. It's in your head. It's what you've been hearing for weeks, months. So when 2020 comes around, now it's too late for the truth to come out. Trump's a treasonous traitor and deserves to not be president.
Yep.
He just thinks that's their goal.
Yeah, it's definitely them manipulating everything. So other than that, I don't know of anything else significant that happened in the news. Last week, I did a stream on the 5th of November. I forgot to talk about the gunpowder treason and plot. Fail on my part. But today is Veterans Day, and I'm not going to forget to talk about that. So, Veterans Day, I served. I've got a brother that is serving. So, while it's on my mind, to everybody who has served or is serving, thank you for your service. And I've heard that a lot in my lifetime, and usually I would respond with something like, oh, no, it's no big deal, or no, I didn't do anything, I didn't do much or anything like this. But today I heard something from a a Vietnam vet that kind of changed my perspective on that. And he was talking about when people, say that, thank him for his service, he was kind of in the same boat, and what a lot of veterans from his era have begun responding with is, you're worth it. And when he explained this, I was like, as soon as he gave that, I was like, oh, yeah, that is the response you're supposed to give. So when someone says, thank you for your service, you respond with, you're worth it.
Yeah, that's a great response.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to use from now on. Instead of, oh, I didn't do anything. I was like, oh, yeah, I was in the Air Force. We didn't really see action of. Because, I mean, when somebody says thank you for your service, if you respond with what I would usually respond with, it's kind of dismissing what they've said. It's almost, I mean, granted, it's not the intention, but to them, it sounds like fake humility. And it's kind of like okay, I acknowledge that it's appreciating their thanks, but also being, yeah, it's not about me, it's about us. So it's kind of a mutual respect as opposed to a one-sided sort of response. So yeah, it's similar to thank you and you're welcome. It's instead of thank you and it's, I guess, no big deal is kind of a usual response, but I don't know. It's a more mutually uplifting exchange that way, and it doesn't it doesn't mean anything if you say it without. It's like you're worth it, and you're empty, and you don't really mean it, and you're like. So it's got. I mean, granted, it's got to come from the heart, but that is a more appropriate response to that. Okay, so I think that was everything. Or anything else I could think of? Nah, I think that was. I think that covers everything. I can start talking about these Groyper guys. And so I mentioned last week the plan for when was the 5th of November? Was that? Yeah, so the 5th of November was Tuesday. We planned on Monday to talk about this. To talk about a couple other subject, and this was going to just be a side note or a footnote, one of stories and not the main story. But as we started talking about this, you gave an impression or an opinion, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Am I the crazy one here? Because that's not what I got out of it at all. So we may have a little bit of disagreement, but it might come down to information that I've seen that most people haven't. And that's what I'm starting to see a lot more because a lot of people have come out for these guys. So one of the first people I noticed backing these guys is the Red Elephant guy, Vince James. Turns out, I mean, I am kind of vaguely familiar of the content the Red Elephants and this guy puts out. I've seen a couple of videos kind of here and there. I've heard other people talking, favorably of them. Most notably Blonde from Beauty and the Beta. I thought I wasn't subscribed to them, but the way that this guy is talking and also his previous associations with certain other members of this group, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, this guy is kind of faking. I should say. I guess I got to set this. So he was censored off of certain platforms, and the Red Elephants, I think they got their YouTube channel suspended, and they cry foul like, "Oh, we didn't do anything wrong," sort of thing. They just banned us out of the blue for nothing, and I'm like listening to these guys, and I'm like, no, it sounds like they banned you guys for saying white supremacist stuff. Granted, I don't agree with that censorship, but I think it's insincere to say we did nothing wrong and all we did was make a channel and we were talking about politics and we were talking about immigration. But if you're talking about immigration based on people's races, that's where I'm like, okay, I can kind of see a legitimate argument for that, and that's the problem. Is a lot of these guys have made an argument that seems legitimate because they talk about demographic voting patterns, and that's they're like, oh well, we should reduce immigration. We shouldn't just let immigrants into this country because they're going to be a net economic boom, or boon, I guess is a better word there, a net economic boon, because look at the voting patterns of people of this particular race. If we let a person in with this particular voting pattern, likely they're going to vote Democrat, and that means the Democrats are going to get more power, and eventually we're going to get to the point where Republicans don't have a chance of winning any election because all of these states will be blue and they'll never turn red again. Sounds reasonable. And that's one of the questions that was brought up at one of these events. But then you hear some of this guy's other stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, this is the first video I saw that kind of, I was like, okay, wait, so, like, when I was listening to the questions, there were certain things that people were talking about that I'm like, okay, that's raising red flags for me. And this is the one where I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitive for me that they're making arguments, but there is an underlying motivation behind those arguments. They won't say the motivation at these Q&A events at Turning Point or Daily Wire events or even Crowder's Spooktacular. they will say the question, and they will hint at some of these things, but it seems like they won't say these things except on their own channels and, in their own company and all that sort of thing. So here's the first clip.
Millions of dollars from donors. Actually, not simply that they're coming here and they're larger.
Okay, so I guess so it's around 140 on this, the first link in there. And they're simply that they're larger. He is talking about immigration, and he's saying this is a reason to stop immigration, and he doesn't bring up statistics about white voting patterns, voting patterns amongst white people. He specifically mentions voting patterns of other racial demographics, and then he goes off and on this little tangent.
Situation, which is not simply that they're coming here and they're voting for Democrats, which is a problem. It's not simply that they're coming here and they don't believe in the Second Amendment and the Constitution and all that, which is still a problem. It's because they come here and they're not us. They will never be us. They can never assimilate to become the same American texture that we knew, that we value, by the way. Charlie Kirk said tonight to people wearing MAGA hats, Trump shirts, he said that if you oppose the ethnic, cultural, whatever you want to call it, the genocide.
Okay, see right there, he said ethnic. So, I mean, I'm not crazy, right? It sounded like he was saying other races cannot be as American as white people. Are you there? You're muted.
Trying to find what point. So that's the compilation video, right? Where's the Q&A at the Charlie Kirk or the Turning Point?
No, I'm looking at the first. This is the Twitter one. At around 140 is his rant, where he says they're not us and they will never be us. Oh,
the older guy, the Michael something.
Sorry, no. This is I thought this was the first link. Sorry if I got I must have my links out of order. It's the Twitter Nationalist TV status link. Sorry, I forgot that was not casting. Can I actually get this to cast? Oh, it's casting. All right. So, let me back this up. Sorry about that. So sometimes that cast doesn't work, and now it's apparently working. So let me see if you can hear this, right?
Not simply that they're coming here and they're voting for Democrats, which is a problem. It's not simply that they're coming here and they don't believe in the Second Amendment and the Constitution and all that, which is still a problem. It's because they come here and they're not us. They will never be us. They can never assimilate to become the same American texture that we knew, that we value, by the way. Charlie Kirk said tonight to people wearing MAGA hats, Trump shirts, he said that if you oppose the ethnic, cultural, whatever you want to call it, the genocide, the destruction of the historic American nation, you're a racist.
Yeah, so...
Okay, so I guess it depends how you're looking at this.
Well, he did say ethnic, so he said they're not us and they will never be us. And if you support the ethnic genocide, meaning, well, if he's talking about white people coming here from other countries, that wouldn't necessarily be an ethnic genocide of the American people, would it? He's talking about people of races that aren't white. And that's... granted, there's more to the clip before that where he's talking about this, but I've got... It's kind of... It's at this point, it's a preponderance of evidence from what I can see that he makes mention of blocking all immigration, which that I am for. I am for zero immigration into the U.S. because we've got a serious problem, not just with immigrants coming in, but with our own people and the values of the people here. Right now we've got that's the entire reason why Charlie Kirk is doing a culture war, and a lot of people are talking, it's like, yeah, we've got internal conflicts. We might be on the verge of a civil war because there's so much hostility between left and right and Republican and Democrat. I mean, right now we just talked about that there's a potential active attempt of a coup to impeach the president over nothing because he's the opposite side of the political spectrum without any real evidence of a crime. Because if they had evidence of a crime, all of the people backing Trump would be like, no, whoa, we want nothing to do with this. Yeah, get him out. If he is the political pawn of Putin, or if he's been working for other countries at America, which, okay, granted, side tangent, if Trump is working for other countries, why is America doing better? They are the worst enemies of America ever. If he is the political pawn of the Ukraine, and he's so corrupt and evil and vile and undermining our system, I'm starting to think, wait, if this is what corruption looks like, I think all of our politicians should be this corrupt. record numbers, record unemployment, record everything.
Which, yeah. Well, okay. Here's my what I'm kind of hearing in all of this, and to me is why I'm not hearing. I guess depending on your viewpoint, you could perceive some racial undertones, and I understand that. I get it.
Yeah,
I get that part, but I don't think that's what they're aiming for. I think they don't know how to put forward an argument without sounding like that. It would be like, so I'll put up a hypothetical right now, and then I'll go back into what they're actually discussing right now. Let's say I built the new division, a housing area, and we're looking for people to move in. Would I rather have people from kind of ghetto downtown areas move into this neighborhood, or would I look for, middle class Americans who are in other suburban areas, and they, you're just your typical suburban for whatever city, those kinds of people moving in. And that basically just boils down to income and style of living, right? Usually middle Americans, their houses are a little nicer. They like to cut their grass, everything looking nice. Whereas if you go to downtown, they got bars on the windows,
so
furniture. They don't have enough to afford a decent place, but they also don't necessarily notice the squalor they're living in.
Yeah.
In some of those areas.
So.
But demographic state, that sounds racist just due to most inner city urban areas have a high demographic of a particular ethnicity.
Yeah. So the question is, in a community, you get no say so in who moves into your community. You are not the one who says, oh, I don't want this person as my neighbor. They move into the house next door. They sign a contract with whoever owns that house. You don't have a say so. So
it's usually have those housing associations, or what are those called?
Yeah, homeowners association. Yeah. Usually there are rules in the community, like you're going to abide by these rules, otherwise you have to leave. So that is a thing. Or a cease and desist, or there will be litigation against you. There, whatever, or arbitration, whatever the HOA's kind of terms of service. The HOAs exist, and thing with HOAs are, in some communities, the HOA actually owns the neighborhood, and you don't actually, you sign a purchase agreement with the homeowner, but the HOA has to approve that, and if they don't approve of you, doesn't matter if you had the bill of sale and the homeowner was willing to sell to you, the HOA can knock down that deal.
Yep.
So that is the case in certain communities. In other communities, the HOA just enforces like lawn care and stuff like that, and has no, like, if you move in and you don't do that, the home care, the HOA has no real power.
I'm not talking about the governance of it.
Yeah. So
you moving as an individual, who would you like to see move in as well?
Yeah. So I understand that particular kind of analogy. The difference is the U.S. does control everybody who enters on the borders, or at least they're supposed to. That's the point of legal immigration with visas, and H-1B work visas and things like that, and also citizenship. So there is control on everybody who's coming in. Right now, that control is, hey, do you have family? Do you know somebody in the U.S.? All right, you're in. Hey, did you win the lottery? All right, you're in. What Turning Point USA was advocating for in one of the responses to a question was he says, I support the RAISE Act. Oh, I should have that link pulled up as well about the RAISE Act. The RAISE Act cuts legal immigration by 50% off the bat. Just 50% reduction in the number of legal immigrants we currently allow. And then it's got other provisions. It eliminates the lottery. It eliminates the chain migration of family members and family members and family members. It is no longer
signed in not too long ago.
What?
Was this the one that was just signed in under the Trump administration not too long ago, or is that a different immigration act?
No, it is not actually in place yet. It passed the
Okay.
it passed the or it was it is a bill that Trump said he would sign if it was passed. The House has enough the Senate has enough votes to pass it. It has not passed committee at the House. That's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on the House to stop this impeachment nonsense and actually get that bill taken care of and pushed to the floor for a vote, or for Congress to be replaced, and then the new the House, hopefully they get a Republican majority, and then that's going to be their first thing they do is push through the RAISE Act. So either the RAISE Act or or a heartbeat bill, a federal heartbeat bill. Those are the two kind of main priorities for from what I've seen. Once they can finally get all away from all this impeachment nonsense, and so the RAISE Act, that was one of those things that was introduced by the Senate and was Trump expressed his support for. A lot of conservative figures have expressed support for that. I am one of those. I'm like, it's not. I am for zero immigration, like 0% immigration, because I think we've got too many problems we need to fix in the here and now.
I think we've already had too much immigration in the last decades.
Yeah, we need to fix the internal structure of our society, and then once that gets settled, then we can start slowly introducing new immigrants and all of that. But with the RAISE Act, it gets rid of chain migration by family members. Like if you have, hey, I have a brother or a sister or an uncle or whatever in the U.S., so I get, priority because that's what the U.S. currently has. It gets rid of that, gets rid of the lottery system, and it switches us to a merit-based system like what Canada has and what Australia has, and other countries have similar. It's like, okay, if you speak English, that's a bonus for you. You get bonus points for that. If you have a job already in the U.S., like you have a job offer lined up, so when you get to the U.S., you're not on the government welfare, and you have a job. Okay, that's a bonus for you. If you have, college education, all right, there's another thing. So there's a list of criteria. Are you from a country that has participated in a terrorist attack against us? Well, that's a negative against you. Are you from a country that is opposed to American values? So places from the Middle East would have a harder or people from the Middle East would have a harder time getting into the U.S. through this system. People with views, like, oh, hey, have you been convicted of a crime? Well, then guess what? You're not getting it. Like the criminal thing, I'm not sure if that is a part of current immigration, because there seems to be a lot of legal immigrants that are coming through with criminal records in other countries that don't get caught or don't. Sometimes it's because they're into here illegally to begin with, or they entered illegally. But it seems like that should be a bigger criteria. I've got to double check whether that is currently like, oh, even though you won the lottery, the immigration lottery, you have a criminal record, so you can't even. I don't know about that, if that is the case or not.
Okay, so what was passed recently through the Trump administration? I cannot remember the spokesman, but it was basically declaring what it means to be a charge. So,
for for people crossing the border. Yeah.
Correct. If you use these facilities, then you are a charge on society, and you do not deserve those facilities. But they also had other stipulations for, I think, children under 18 would have access to public schools. Just the kind of basic things that a lot of people have, or it's not really going to be that much more of an impact. But as far as housing assistance and things like that, they're not applicable. If they are on that as an immigrant, that they would no longer be acceptable here. They would just be considered a public charge, something along those lines. That's because we've already had bills like that, or we've been trying to enforce a system like that since the 1800s. I think it was Taft who passed the first bit of legislation or approved the first bill that came through. Basically said, if you're a public charge, you're not welcome here. And that is proceeded. And then Clinton actually put in a couple of updates, but they never specifically defined what it means to be a public charge. Is what Trump's administration did, was said, spell it out. So now we've got exact, if you do this, you're public charge. If you're using these services, not so much, you're okay here. And for kids under 18, you still have access to these services. Obviously, you're a kid. You know, all kids are technically a charge because they're not earning anything yet.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
So it sounds like now all they have to do is worry about that Mexican Joker.
Yeah. But
we're worried about being a flashback in a Mexican Joker origin story.
If they do pass this RAISE Act, then they would actually be able to use that in conjunction with Trump's administration as already to say, for those of you who are here, if you are a public charge, you got to go as well. If you're not a nationalized citizen, you're not born here, you're not a citizen yet, and all you're doing is using our public systems, our welfare systems without inputting, you got to go.
So that's another implication of this. The other thing is the RAISE Act, from what way I see it, is kind of, it's the foot in the door. If we can get this through, then we can start being like, okay, now we can start implementing more stringent measures on who's actually coming in. It is because now we actually have a system in place that says, okay, we got rid of these other systems, and now you have to fit a specific criteria. Well, now that criteria can be voted on and changed and played, like, because it's there. Now, certain policies, we see better immigrants, we see immigrants coming in that are committing less and less crime and that's actually, that's what skews the numbers when you're comparing legal immigrants with illegal immigrants, is overall, legal immigrants tend to commit less crime than the regular population in the U.S. And that skews the average when you mix legal immigrants with illegal immigrants at criminal activity, and it lowers the overall total. But that's dealing with averages. That's what you get is.
Yes. But now what I hear from these Groyper guys is it does somewhat sound ethnically charged. However, it sounds like the principle behind it is this is the conventional U.S. conventional U.S. lifestyle, belief system, the basis of conservatism. This is what the ideals that the country was founded on. They seem to be shifting more and more to the left. So they're looking at a big demographic who's coming in and continually led to vote on the left simply because they get put into a welfare system.
Yeah.
They're feeding off of it and saying, we give you free stuff, continue to vote for us. The more that they vote Democrat, the more things just keep shifting more and more left.
Yeah. And eventually you're going to get to the point where certain states, the population of people is so large that they are permanently blue and you can't fix it, like California.
So in your mind, if they're thinking, how do we preserve our nation and the original ideas? How do we try and halt or at least slow down this movement that we're not even sure if it's helping anything? It's kind of one of those change just to change.
Well, see, they're not thinking fourth dimensionally, right? Like the Back to the Future. They're saying, so this is something I pointed out, is Fuentes and people like him, they cite current voting patterns of racial groups, which have been fairly consistent throughout time, but then again, so have our immigration policies. We've always had in this country, born in America, you are an American. So people will come over illegally, pregnant, have their child in America, and now the anchor baby thing, right? And then that anchor baby provides them a foot into the door through the chain migration policy.
I thought they found a couple of warehouses of Chinese anchor baby stations in like San Francisco.
Yeah. So this wouldn't get rid of the anchor baby problem, although that is something that that does need to be passed. Is like, yeah, no longer born in the USA, American citizen. Yeah, I am of the opinion.
American citizen parent and born on American soil. I mean, similar to what we have now, U.S. or contiguous states, or a military base that is U.S. owned, an embassy, but you also have to have an American parent.
Yeah.
You not just get to walk right in.
Yeah, you have to have at least one parent who's already an American citizen. That would remove the anchor baby situation. That would limit the chain migration. Well, the RAISE Act eliminates chain migration altogether. So, hey, even if you've got a parent in the United States, or let's say,
another country, right? Or you're a woman, you meet a man in another country, and you decide to get married.
Yeah.
And they move here. They're your spouse. You have children. That still encompasses all of that, and they can still apply to U.S. citizen, and they're going to have an easy time because they're a spouse of U.S. citizen.
So spousal citizenship is still that's unaffected by this. Now, what happens is she's going to be able to come over, and her kids are going to be American citizens. Her husband's going to be Americans, or vice versa. You know, I'm just saying, But she's not going to be able to bring her brother and her uncle. They get no special treatment. The rest of her extended family. Right now, her extended family would get special treatment or special consideration for immigration status. That's a problem. So this eliminates that, and it's like, so if somebody marries an American citizen and starts a family with them, kids are already taken care of. They've already got one. We add one more citizen who is the spouse. That's it. This is a one. It's a marriage is a one-off thing. It's not the one and then that one turns into 100 over the next 10, 20 years. So the RAISE Act solves a lot of these problems that these Groyper guys have, but the problem is, again, they're not thinking fourth dimensionally, because the current immigration policies have been the chain migration, have been the lottery winnings, have been people coming in and overstaying their visa and staying here, having kids here, and those kids are American citizens now, even if the parents never were U.S. citizens. Those are all problems with the current system, and you see the voting demographics, or the voting patterns in the past however many years remain relatively consistent, and part of that is these patterns. There's another part of that, which is, and I've stated this repeatedly when arguing with these guys, it is cultural. Absolutely cultural, and yet these people insist that it is race-based. I'm like, cultures are not... Alright, cultures spring out of racial groups. Cultures of racial groups are not intrinsic to a racial group, in that a racial group's culture will change over time. Their race doesn't change over time. Their culture changes over time. Japanese culture, I was telling one of these guys, I was like, he's like, I think Japan is great and they've got great immigration, but I don't want the U.S. to become Japan. And I'm like, look at Tokyo. I showed him a picture, and I'm like, dude, I lived in Las Vegas for 2 years. If I didn't know, I pulled this picture. I asked him where is this from? Is this from Las Vegas or Tokyo? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, from that picture, I can't tell, and I lived in Las Vegas for 2 years. I don't know which city that's from. It's only I knew where I pulled it from on Google. That's the only reason I know which city it actually is. And I'm saying, that's not Japanese culture. That's not, when people think Japanese culture, it's like, shoguns and these big, Chinese, or not, it would be Japanese, these big Japanese palaces and samurais and anime. And I'm like, you go to California, Comic-Con, there's anime everywhere. I'm like, that's not... Or, even in Las Vegas, there's a huge anime scene, and you're like, if you're in specific districts in Las Vegas, and if you're in a specific district in Tokyo, the only thing that's going to be different is the color of the people's skin and the language they're speaking. That's... Our culture is a lot closer to Japan, and we take parts of their culture and mix it into the America culture. like the idea that America is somehow Western European and nothing else is absolutely insane. Because other cultures, they can trace their history back, and there's been, some of them have had very little change over the past 100 years. Namely, the Middle East, right? That they've same racial breakup or same ethnic group, very similar culture to what it was 100 something years ago. You're not seeing huge skyscrapers in, there's a couple of cities in some of these countries, but a lot of it is rural farmers and stuff.
That's all tangential. That's not part of the main issue.
No.
Right?
What I'm saying is, they are saying racial group change would bring a culture that is different from what America culture is right now, and that's not true.
It depends, I think, on where that's coming from. So if you look at America, like take Venezuela or anybody that's had a socialist government kind of put over them, you have some people who come out and despise it and say, look what socialism did to my country. I'm trying to go somewhere else to make a better life. Then you have a bunch of other people that just see their country crumbling. They've been inundated with socialism, thinking it's a good thing. It just didn't work. Come over here and then expect all this free stuff from the U.S. and vote for socialist policies. Thinking, well, the U.S. must have socialism right. And so they vote left.
Yeah, but so right there you've identified two people that have the same race that have different voting patterns, which is a refutation of his belief that look at the demographics of people who are Hispanic and how they voted, and they favor Democrats heavily, and I'm like, that's treating individuals of that group as if they are going to follow statistical trends, and I'm like, if we reduce our immigration and we have a merit-based system, those demographics are going to change. Voting patterns are going to change.
Yeah, that I would agree with. It's just mass immigration stuff. You've got caravans of 10,000 coming up.
Yeah. That's
the majority of them are along the same mindset, thinking the same as far as what political policy.
Look at some of the questions that they were asking Charlie Kirk, and I said the RAISE Act would automatically reduce current immigration levels by half, current legal immigration by half. These people still say, oh, he wants mass immigration. I'm like, that's a step to less immigration, not more mass immigration, or not mass immigration. It's a reduction of current immigration, so saying, oh, he favors mass immigration, that is incredibly dishonest.
Yeah.
All right, I've got this, let's see. While I've got it casting, I'm going to switch it over here. So, trying to make sure I'm not missing any hangouts in the chat or anything like that.
But you might have seen this on Twitter that last night Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA was holding an event
I'm
in
gonna
Colorado
put it on a
State
double time.
University.
That way we're not spending too much.
Currently on his college tour. It's called the Culture War. What is it called? It's the Culture Wars Campus Tour, something like this. Charlie Kirk, of course, is the head of Turning Point USA. He's on one of these college speaking tours, and he was at Colorado State University last night with Donald Trump Jr. and with Donald Trump.
So this isn't Fuentes' channel. This is somebody else who kind of does the highlight cut up. Because this stream is like 2
I imagine they must be Groypers to go up and actually challenge Charlie Kirk on some issues from the right.
So I have a question. So from America First perspective, why do we give $3.8 billion to Israel, which is more aid than we've given to Africa, more aid than we've given to South America, and more aid than we've given to the Caribbean combined, which is home to 1 billion poor people, especially when they deliberately attacked the USS Liberty in the 1970s?
That is incorrect.
Yeah, okay, so that's, well, I cut it off there a second too soon. Let me,
Do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event. That is not acceptable.
Okay. That's do not peddle conspiracy theories in our event. Now, I looked into the USS Liberty, and, let's see, I'll switch over to that without playing the audio. So, I mean, granted, this is just the Wikipedia, so I'm not, how dare you, no, I'm saying, this is what I'm using in this case because it's kind of condensed the official story. I've seen interviews from the people who were on the boat. I've looked into all this stuff. I'm saying the common narrative, the accepted narrative is this. Now, you can have conspiracy theories, but you cannot base policy on your conspiracy theories. You cannot go out to a public forum. Like, there are people who think the moon landing was fake, and if they would say, well, the moon landing is fake, we should stop defunding NASA, or not NASA, if they went to one of these events and tried to make that argument or ask questions about that, they would be laughed at equally. Or they would be say, hey, stop peddling that, we don't support conspiracy theory. And the person who's asking this question may believe that adamantly. But the story everyone else accepts is this. The USS Liberty was attacked by Israel. Israel and the US both agree it was a case of mistaken identity. The people on the boat disagree with this. Some of the people who were in government at the time disagreed with this. There are a lot of people in higher echelons of the military who disagree with this. I heard, one of the interviews I watched, the guy was a low-ranking member of the boat. 90% of what he was talking about is stuff he heard from other people about the incident. It wasn't his personal experience on why it couldn't have been mistaken identity. It's other people's accounts of this on why it couldn't be mistaken identity. And he tells a story of meeting an Israeli soldier, and that Israeli soldier told him that he felt sorry for them because it was a deliberate attack by Israel. And that, for some reason, is his confirmation that this was a deliberate attack by Israel. And I'm like, dude, I've had people in the military try to convince me that I'm trying to, I don't want to, okay, let's see. How do I say this without giving people away? Okay, I don't think I can actually do that. There are people who currently serve or have served when I was serving who believe radical crazy shit. That doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's true about the military. It doesn't mean it's true about the current president when that was active at the time. It doesn't mean it was true about people and the higher-ups. It doesn't mean that there are lizard people controlling our military. I'm not saying that somebody actually... to the best of my knowledge, none of the guys I knew...
And unless
I wouldn't put it past, but...
intelligence agency, or were on that ship as the captain, and you went over and you talked to the commanding officer on the Israeli side and say, why did you fire on us? And he said, I'm sorry, I thought you guys were someone else. Did not mean that. Unless you are the two guys who called the shots.
Yeah.
And they're talking face to face, and they hashed it out, said, okay, yeah, we get it. Unless you're one of those guys, then the rest is just your own opinion.
Yeah, it like, dude, I've had so
you're giving orders to fire on the ship. That's your orders. You don't know the reasoning, other than that.
Okay, so this is something a little less controversial. So Pat Tillman, right, the quarterback, joins the military, gets shot by friendly fire. There are people that I served with who thought that was a setup. Like, he was intentionally put out there in that unit to kill him. And I'm like, what? Like, for some reason, they really, really hated this national patriot who was a hero, and they really wanted him dead. So dead that they put him out there, inexperienced, put him in the front line, and then backed away and let the other unit open fire on him. I'm like, what? Oh, but yeah, I heard from somebody who was a part of the squad that he wasn't really trained. He didn't go through boot camp. He got special treatment, and so he didn't know how to fire anything. And I heard that, they intentionally were miscommunicating with the other squad and giving him a different coordinations on where they actually were. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So there's people who doesn't, just because you're serving with other people and other people in your same unit, just because you're hearing stories from, doesn't mean that is actually the case. It's so the way that these people latch on to this. Now, I don't know one way or the other. It could be that Israel was directly attacking this boat, and the claim is Israel's attacking this boat because they didn't want this boat reporting back to the U.S. on what Israel was about to do. But my question on that is, the U.S. agreed with what Israel did. The U.S. didn't do crap when they did find out about it. The U.S. is like, oh yeah, good job, Israel. Why the hell would we gotta kill this boat? They're gonna report back to the U.S. and they're gonna give away what we're doing right now, and the U.S. is gonna start a war with us. And I'm like, when the U.S. found out, they're like, oh, dude, not only did you attack one of our boats and we found out about it, we're going to chalk that up to, no, that was just mistaken identity, accident, you're bad, it's war, you've got 3 countries attacking you. It's kind of understandable. It's an unfortunate incident, but it does happen. Oh, and by the way, good job defending yourself against those other countries and going and taking their shit. How does the sinking the boat so they don't tell the U.S. doesn't make any sense in that context. You're like, wait a minute. If they had sunk the boat, they could have blamed one of the other guys. But
yeah, well, so overall,
it's
maybe there's controversy in some people's minds as to what the initial interaction was, what the cause of it was. Was it intentional or was it an accidental case mistaken identity, or someone just issued a bad command and then later it said, "Oops, sorry, that's not what we meant to do." Who knows? But it looks like the official story is that it was mistaken identity.
And regardless, to use that as the prerequisite, so this is my problem with these guys. They ask a question, but then they grandstand on top of that and shoehorn these other things in. Now, had he just said the question as it was, we give this much money to Israel, and it's more than all these other countries. Why do we do that? And then he's like, oh, and we attack, they attacked at the Lusitania, or not the Liberty, and he mentioned some other incident, and I'm like, dude, just stick with the question you asked, because that is a reasonable question to ask, and he would have given a reasonable response, but you shoehorned this other stuff in there. That is a problem.
Like that, you say, are you implying we should give no resources to our ally? And if you say we should give no resources to Israel as an ally, is that anti-Semitic, or what's the reasoning?
Oh, I don't. I've said it before on some of these streams. I don't think it is. I think the U.S. right now can't afford to give aid to anybody, and we need to cut all foreign aid. Not Israel, or not just Israel, as these guys, which is the other thing. I've been going back and forth with these guys on Twitter. I mentioned, okay, you guys reference Israel and foreign aid to Israel a lot. What about foreign aid to Iraq? What about foreign aid to, I'm not sure if Afghanistan was on the list, but I know Saudi Arabia is on the list of countries we give foreign aid to. Kuwait we give foreign aid to. Japan and Germany. And I mentioned, I was like, okay, the Liberty thing, that was about 50 years ago. Dial it back 30 more years, we are actively at war with Germany and Japan. We dropped bombs on Japan. Germany was responsible for the Holocaust. We give them almost half a billion, half a billion every year in aid. Should we not give Germany? I mean, based on the same argument you guys are making right now, why are you not saying that Germany should not receive any financial aid because of they started World War II? Why are you not saying, hey, we need to cut off Japan from foreign aid because they suicide bombed our boats? They killed a lot of our troops. They fought us tooth and nail for almost a year after Germany had given up, and they only stopped once we nuked them. Why aren't the Groypers talking about how we shouldn't be giving them financial aid? The Groypers don't mention, hey, why are we giving $1 billion to Ukraine? Why? Why are we giving $1 billion to them for Biden to hold it over their heads in the first place? What has the Ukraine ever given us? I am for no foreign aid. We can't afford it. If we get back to the point where we don't have $21 trillion in debt, maybe then we can start helping other countries out.
Well, yeah, I guess that is a good point, as in, what is the purpose of the foreign aid?
Yeah.
So, I don't know what's behind it. Are we giving aid so they can bolster themselves to make them a better trade partner for us down the road? Or like Ukraine, since they kind of splintered off of the USSR, are we trying to help bolster them up so that way they don't...
That's pretty much what it is we are using them as a proxy shield against Russia. Yeah. Like, hey, we'll keep giving you $1 billion if Russia comes... You are between us and them.
So we'll help you guys out, and you're going to be our sandbag.
Yeah. You're going to... Oh, man, I was about to say that. I'm like, no, that's the South Park episode, Operation Get Behind the... I can't say the rest of that because YouTube will demonetize. I mean, YouTube won't just demonetize. I'm not monetized in the first place, but YouTube might just delete my channel.
That sounds familiar. They have chef in it.
Yeah, it was from the movie where
Oh yeah.
I think they were Meat Shield, and then the backup, the rest of the squad will be participating in Operation Get Behind Them. So,
yeah. So basically, like that. So if we were to not provide any aid, what would that do?
Well, the Russia might be a little more aggressive on some of these countries that we are backing, but I think after a little bit of pushback, eventually they would be like, "Oh yeah, we actually, yeah, that was a bad idea." So similar to what Turkey and the Syria situation, right? We're like, "Oh, we can't take troops out of there. They're gonna go to war, and it's gonna be all our problem, and then that's gonna," and like. We pulled out, and then they kind of came to, yeah, this is stupid. All right, we'll do a ceasefire. This is not worth it. And the U.S. has jets, and they can be there. It's not like they're fighting. Oh, we can't do anything. No, we can attack anywhere in the world. We can send fighter jets, and we can bomb. Like, this is exactly how we won the Iraq War within hours. We destroyed all of their communications, completely put their military in disarray, and then we sent in our troops to do cleanup. Like, if the U.S. says, okay, yeah, the Turkey and Syria situation, all right, you guys are, yeah, we're just sending our jets in, you guys are going to be crippled, and then we'll go in and clean you up. We'll go in, we'll send troops back, and they can get there in a couple of, hours or days, but that's fine, because you guys are already hobbling, and I mean, basically, the troops are just going in to kick you while you're down. So if Russia was like, oh, hey, we're just going to, no more aid to Ukraine. All right, we're just going to annex Ukraine. No, U.S. is going to be like, as soon as that starts, like, mother of all bombs in the middle of that. Yeah, Russia, don't try that. It's not worth it. They're going to try to toe the line or whatever. Or they're going to try to their little skirmishes, and then they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, this is stupid. This is not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the political hassle. It's not worth the country's backlash. It's not worth sanctions. Whatever. We'll just keep things as they are."
But I'm saying, is that kind of the only reason for providing aid to countries like why do we provide aid?
It seems like it. There's been no reason given. The only one, again, this is contrary to what the Groypers are saying. The only one that does actually make sense is Israel. Now, I don't think the amount that we give them makes sense, but Israel is constantly under attack. It's like even with the U.S. backing, they're fighting off rockets on a weekly or monthly basis. How many times have they had to rebuild their wall, and how many times they are constantly under siege. So, I mean, granted, yeah, hey, you guys, rather than send troops over there to fight in their stupid war, it's like, dude, yeah, we need you guys there. We need you guys not to get taken over and not to be. So, all right, here's some money. Don't spend it all in one place. That'll keep you there. That'll undo the damage that these attackers have done, and you are a proxy in that region. That kind of makes sense to me. At least, so the Ukraine, I don't think is so legitimate. I think we could pull our money out of Ukraine. Russia would threaten, maybe do a little skirmishes on the border, and then ultimately back off. If we pulled financial aid from Ukraine or from Israel, I don't think we'd see the same story played out. I think it would be like, oh, all bets are off. Israel's fair game. Bomb, 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 bomb. There goes your walls. There goes your rocket defenses. All right, now we're going to start an all-out war with Israel. And U.S. would have to get involved in a conflict over there. I think the way it is right now, we're avoiding conflict by $3 billion a year. Now, for these people, that's a lot of money. What's the U.S. Military budget? Something in the hundreds of billions a year. Let's see. Let me pull that up. the U.S. military budget, yeah, $693 billion. So technically, we should look at this as $396 billion, because $3 billion is going to Israel that we don't have to spend on our military because we're spending it on their military. That's the idea. I don't agree with that idea. I think we should not be spending money on any other country, even if it keeps Israel in that area. We are going into debt to give Israel $3 billion every year. I don't think we are. I don't think that is a net positive for the country to continue to do that. So, granted, if we pulled our financial aid from Israel and Israel got bombarded by all the Arab countries in that region, I'm trying to think if that would. Well, here's the thing. If the U.S. goes bankrupt, it's going to happen anyway, right?
Yeah.
So
we're not going to bankrupt because of the money we're giving them. That's it.
Yeah. That's not what's going to cause us to bankrupt. We're going to go bankrupt because we got $21 trillion, and the interest on that alone is going to exceed our IRS revenue, and it's climbing pretty fast. So all it's going to take is one stock market crash or something along those lines, and then our GDP tanks, and then our actual IRS revenue coming in to pay the bills disappears, and we go further in debt, and that national debt goes higher, or the interest on that debt exceeds what we can possibly tax in a single year. Well,
yeah,
that's when you get no aid to Israel.
Here, the basic question. So, the Groypers guys versus, say, your typical conservative, right? They're claiming they're bringing back old school conservatism, but they're injecting these odd questions or comments within it, as if, do you have another motive besides just getting a answer to your general question? So my question would simply be, I understand. Why are we giving so much to Israel? If we are going to give them, foreign aid, should it be spread evenly across the countries that we can't afford with? Or should we just not give it, as in your point of view? And I definitely agree with that. Most countries, I don't think we are giving money other than, hey, we're the cool guy on the block. Remember us whenever you want to do some trades or whatever. I guess just to keep our respect within global trade communities. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite make sense. They're their own country because they are their own country. We're not a bank. We're not the Bank of the United States to pay for the rest of the world's stuff. I mean, how many homeless people do we have in Los Angeles alone now?
Yeah.
We've got our own problems.
Yeah. We need to. Right now, we are in a situation where we need to take care of ourselves before we can attempt to take care of others. So I compared this. I don't remember if I was talking on the last stream.
Well, maybe conservatism not on the sly.
So when the U.S. first started giving financial aid to Israel and helping them out and all that sort of stuff, the U.S. was kind of like, we had a 6-figure income. We had good, we were doing really well. We could afford it and all that stuff. We didn't have a very large national debt even after the war. We were the only country that actually really had a surplus, and all the other countries were kind of, destitute for the war. We were helping everybody out. So it's kind of like a family where you invite somebody to crash on your couch. You're like, oh, hey, granted, I don't want to, I'll just say because we've had a bunch of those. I'm not going to name one in particular, although I think you know where I'm going with this. One, oh, hey, come over, stay at our house for a couple years until you get back on your feet. Oh, I guess here's where the analogy between our kind of separates. So Israel comes in, crashes on the couch for a couple of years, gets back on their feet. You're giving them food and all that sort of stuff, and then Israel lands a job making more money than you do, and they're still crashing on your couch, and you're still giving them allowance. You're like, wait a minute, Israel, what the, dude? You're making more money than us. You have a surplus right now. You don't have this large national debt. You could, if you wanted to, eliminate your own national debt within several years or whatever. You're closer to financial, solvency or stability than we are. Why are we giving you an allowance? Why are we letting you crash on our couch? Go out and get your own place. So it's kind of at that point, it's like, wait a minute, if they're better off financially than us, and we're still giving them stuff, that to me is an imbalance in a relationship, right? So at the very least, we should reduce the amount that we are giving Israel, and kind of wean them off, or maybe even cut them off cold turkey. But it doesn't make sense. So I guess one thing I missed in this analogy is the entire time they're crashing on our couch, we're charging their expenses on our credit card. We're paying for their food and their rent with our credit card. So it's more than just giving them our stuff. We're going in debt to give them our stuff when they make more money than us. Or when they're financially better off than us, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. So, to the main topic of the Reuters guys, I guess
if they were legitimate, I don't think they are legitimate.
What you're hearing is that they have legitimate questions, but are phrasing them in a way or including.
So I based on all the stuff that I'm looking at, all these video clips that I've got queued up, I'm convinced their motivations are not pure. They are using these legitimate questions to mask their true intentions. They are pretending, they wouldn't answer a legitimate question. This is a legitimate concern. But they've smuggled in so much other stuff, and I'm like, if you'd have cut all that other stuff, I would be on board. But you've got all that other stuff, and it makes me think, people keep pointing out that you've got this other stuff in there, and rather than, wait, maybe we need to pull that back and just ask these specific questions, they double down and they go more extreme with the stuff they try to squeeze in there. And it's like, to me, it seems more like they are using this and they are trying to give themselves an air of legitimacy by asking seemingly reasonable and legit questions. But I think their true intention is to get these other things out there. And I have been calling them socialists, and they have not rebutted that. I have been calling them white supremacists and white nationalists. That they have given me some bounce back on. But then I show them video clips of... Actually, maybe I should just cut to that. Although, I don't think we're quite done with this Q&A video. Maybe we'll come back to it. But then I will send them a link to something like this. So I'm not linking to this guy because he is like some fringe member of them that is saying these things and they don't agree with it or whatever. And maybe I'm not using him as if he has infiltrated this group and is trying to make them look bad. These are the guys that they're quoting, and he is the guy that they're saying should be debating Charlie Kirk. So here is a clip from him. The first 30-ish seconds or maybe 45 seconds of this is from the Unite the Right rally.
Yeah, for him to disavow white supremacy is very cucked and blue-pilled. Totally wrong and a big mistake. I get, there's a lot of pressure on him right now. There's a lot of calls for him to disavow the stuff, even from his own side. These people like, what's this guy, Tim Scott, who earlier today was like, white nationalism is antithetical to the American creed. But what do you know about the American creed?
Yeah, so that right there is like, this is the guy...
I mean, I haven't actually listened to that Nick Fuentes guy much at all. I just heard he got banned from that Turning Point USA debate.
So he was just saying it was wrong of President Trump to disavow white nationalists or white supremacists, and he's saying this other guy is talking about white supremacy or white nationalism not being a part of the American structure, and he's derp, what do you know about? And I'm like, this is the guy that they're championing as their go-to guy to be debating Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, a lot of these people, like, I know that the David dude who asked the questions about the anal sex, one of the other guys who was talking about Nick Fuentes being banned from Charlie Kirk's thing or whatever. One of those guys, both of them know about this. One of them was on the rightwingwatch.org, because this rightwingwatch.org was Nick Fuentes' first thing. Oh, sorry, not rightwingwatch.org. No, wait, this is America First, because he was a part. So rightwingwatch.org is the one who took this video clip. Fuentes and his channel cut these video clips out of their video. I was looking for the originals of these, and there's jump cuts in them. So these are not. Were in the original streams and have been cut from subsequent uploads. So that to me is, this is not. So he was a member of some other organization before the America First channel or whatever he's running right now. The other guy that was with him was one of those two guys asking questions, or at least that's my understanding of it. So they know about this, and yet they're going to these events and hey, Nick Fuentes. So,
well, I guess you kind of have a point. So that James, the Red Elephant, James, whatever,
Vince James or James Vince, Vince James,
like that. I've watched quite a bit of his stuff. He has some videos that I thought were pretty good, but after a while, I did stop watching him just because every once in a while I'd hear something that didn't sound quite right. Just kind of, what do you mean by that?
Well, there's a over
with James Alsop. Most of his stuff was not necessarily political, but every once in a while you hear something that just doesn't click, doesn't feel.
Yeah, you got an obsession with Jews. So Owen Benjamin was the same way. Like he started off with that the Shylock Holmes or whatever, and I'm like, dude, that was a great bit, and then it stopped being a bit. It stopped being. And it just became a thing. And you're like, it's funny when it's a joke because it's absurd. And it's absurd how much of this. It's not so funny when you can't tell the difference between that skit and what you're saying just casually. It's like, what? But eventually he started going more and more. And I'm like, dude, I can't support you down that road. That's.
So, I mean, does it seem like it's veiled ethno-nationalism? They're unaware that that's what they're alluding to? Or do you think it is intentional? They're just trying to skirt around where it doesn't sound like it.
So what I'm thinking is the people asking the questions, with the exception of people who are kind of figureheads in this, I would say that that David guy, because one of the other videos I've got is an interview that he did with E. Michael Jones. I think he is. So the people who are kind of perpetuating these ideas, who are kind of more the leaders of this thing, they have to know what they're talking about. There's no way that they can keep saying these things by accident or unintentionally. They have to know. The other people who are reading questions off of their cell phones, those I think are more just political. They're just useful idiots. They're happy to be a part of the group and they think this is right, and they're not really thinking this through. They notice these things and are just kind of like, oh yeah, they're just joking about that, because I've seen that so many times in this. I'm like, was what he just said about Trump denouncing white supremacy as something he shouldn't have done, was that a joke? Because it didn't sound like a joke. It didn't sound like a bit. There was no obvious satire in that. And then when he backs it up by saying, oh yeah, what do you know about this nation? This nation was white nationalist. There, he's basically alluding that this country was founded by white nationalists. And I'm like, that's not the case. So
I would think
it doesn't seem like a bit.
Predominantly white, but that's as close as you could get to it.
Yeah. So the thing that they keep. So I will say this. They link to a document about the Congress, like the first Congress, when they met together and they were passing laws. In that documentation, it's not in the Constitution, it's not a Declaration of Independence, but in the records when Congress meets, they talk about whites only. Because at the time, that was the law of the land. Whites only were involved in politics. Whites only had the vote. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that was the intention for the country to remain that way indefinitely. Especially if you read what Thomas Jefferson wrote about it. Especially if you read what George Washington wrote about this and what he did on his deathbed. Especially if you look at what George Mason was saying. And almost everybody except for Alexander Hamilton and a couple other guys and the kind of no names, but Ben Franklin was writing about abolition and about how they should be treated the same way politically as as whites, and he wasn't talking about kicking them out of the country so they could be free and equal. He was talking about letting them stay in the U.S. and being treated as citizens. Like all of those guys were making those claims. It's not until you get back to Lincoln that Lincoln is saying, okay, we need to free the slaves and we need to send them somewhere else. There is granted, he freed the slaves and he had suggested that they should have gone to some other, I think it was like Liberia maybe, or there was a proposal to have a boat or charter a boat that would take them back to Africa and out of the U.S. after the Civil War. But yeah, that's not gonna fly, and a lot of people would give him, he wouldn't go down in history as this great emancipator of slavery, ender of slavery, and hero of blacks, had he actually been able to fulfill that. But there's other people in Congress at the time, and there's other people that were around like, dude, you can't do that. that's insane. Not only is it political suicide, but we're gonna fight you tooth and nail. They're gonna fight you tooth and nail. You just can't do that. They're here and they're part of the country now. That's
so. I guess if you look at the founding, the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, if you were to take it word for word, right, just read it and how does it apply?
Yeah.
Not necessarily going back and reading.
You have to start with the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, but I'm saying not necessarily going back and saying, well, look at the opinions of all of these various forefathers and let's see what their stances were. If you actually read through it, yes, there is mention of slaves and freed people. It doesn't mention black people.
Nope.
It's not talking about any race in specific.
Yeah.
It mentions Americans who decide they don't want to participate in the United States, those on reserves, and how they have no political rights because they deem themselves outside the United States. And then it also, when it got to like the 3/5 proclamation for slave votes, that only applied to slaves, not freed peoples. It didn't mention a specific ethnicity.
It didn't mention a specific ethnicity. Also, that was not talking about their status as a citizen or their status as a right.
That's what I'm saying.
It's mentioned slave. It doesn't mention an ethnicity, but it specifically said this is for the purpose of determining how many representatives that state has.
Yeah, and I made that same argument.
Yeah,
quite a few other comments, but what I'm getting at is they were not considering just simple race or ethnicity. It was slave versus free people.
Yeah. So,
and once you get rid of the notion of slavery, that did hurt some of the southern economic, or a lot of their economics. They were cash crop was their primary economic, but it wasn't based off of ethnicity. It was the concept of, is slavery a thing and should it exist, or should it exist? And what you see is that there are certain what's the word I'm looking for? Concessions put in since slavery was already legal, but it tried to limit states' abuse of slave power and was pointing towards the abolition of slavery.
Yeah, that was one of the main things that keyed off the Civil War. Was they stopped all imports of slaves. It was, you could not get any new slaves from outside the U.S. All slaves that were in the U.S., you could still get new slaves if they had kids, and those kids would be slaves. There was no more slaves being imported into the U.S. That was a huge hit to the South. Yeah. That was a step towards abolition. Yeah.
Correct. So when looking at the founding of the country, it doesn't matter if a founding father had slaves.
Yeah.
What they wrote in the Constitution, not a proponent or stating slavery should exist and you have the right to own slaves. In fact, quite the opposite, basically declaring individual right, and that slavery goes against individual rights.
Yes.
If you just take it based off of that, the original conservative America had nothing to do with race. Never has. That wasn't the point. And whether or not a president came in that was racist, or we've had racist politicians in, Obviously, we have. I mean, there are some self-proclaimed racists.
Mm-hmm.
I think BJ was a self-proclaimed racist.
Yeah, and Andrew Jackson as well. I mean, he hated blacks and Indians. So I mean, there have been racist, and Richard Nixon as well. There's also Ronald Reagan saying stuff that you're like, wow, I can't believe he just said that. But that doesn't mean that the country as a whole, or that the country should be, or is founded on principles where it's whites only.
Yeah,
the evidence for that is severely lacking, and there's an overwhelming amount of evidence contrary to that.
But so the reason I bring that up is, if our Constitution is set the way to where we should maintain it, and that's why it is a Constitution, it's what binds us as a republic. Same thing with our Bill of Rights, that those are the amendments added to the Constitution, make sure we as American citizens have our rights. If those are not up to interpretation, we just take it at its value, and at its value, it's not in support of slavery. It doesn't say, hey, you have the right to own slaves. It just said, since slavery did exist, during voting, there is this. But once they're free, they count towards the regular population. There's nothing in the Constitution that said you have the right to own another person's life. That's not a right that's protected. There was just, again, concessions put in since slavery was already legal at the time. Now, if slavery was a right, it would have been put in the amendments. You have the right to own slaves, and here is how.
Yeah, and they would have started putting ethnicity into the laws as they enacted them into the amendment and things along that. The only law in the Constitution that actually mentions a specific race is the one saying that blacks were no longer slaves.
Yep.
It was the one granting, or well, I guess there's two laws. The one granting them the right to vote, and then the one that, because the Emancipation Proclamation was just that was the presidential authority. It was the amendment that actually put into law that said, hey, this is set now, that you can't. There is no executive order that can undo this now. The executive order could have done the Emancipation Proclamation. So it's not, that I forget the numbers of those. It's what, the 17th 14th? And 18th, or was 17th? It earlier than that?
I'm not sure the dates.
Oh, I'm not talking about the dates. I'm talking about the number, like the amendment number. Yeah. 13th. Wow, I was way off. Yeah, 13th and 14th. Those mention race. There's no mention of race in any of the other amendments or any of the other federal bills. Like Congress, like discussions within Congress. Yes, there's mention of race. There's mention the actual bills themselves once they're passed and into law. No. Amendments to the Constitution. No. It's not. Even the other bills may say, no. They may say a race cannot be discriminated against, but they don't mention a specific race or anything like that. Those are the only two that mention a specific race. Granted, if somebody out there has some, proof of some other law.
We have our Constitution and amendments. The Declaration of Independence is basically stating what the United States is, what the ideal is behind forming the United States. The Constitution.
Actually, this does not mention blacks.
Yeah, I don't.
I was about to say, was it the 14th that did then? Maybe not. Maybe I am completely wrong, and both of them don't mention black specifically.
Yeah, I don't remember reading anything about black specifically. I remember Native Americans, but it wasn't out of discrimination. It was those who opted out of joining the United States.
Yeah, but I'm talking about something that was actually enacted into law. Or, that mentioned a specific race, right? Am I misremembering these, and am I just remembering people talking about them and not the laws themselves?
Maybe just other legislation that's not part of the Constitution.
Yeah, there is no mention of it at all in the Constitution. Wow, I was sorely mistaken.
Yeah, maybe you're thinking like Civil Rights Act or something.
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah, all right then. So it's nowhere in the Constitution mentioned anything about a specific race. All right then.
So just based off of that, if you take it in its entirety and you look at it and what its intent is and what it's there to protect, no matter what changes culturally, as long as the United States says we are to preserve these rights,
yeah,
we'll always have the right to free speech. Government cannot censor you.
Yeah.
We'll always have the right to bear arms. Government can't take your arms away. As long as we protect those rights and make sure government does not overstep their bounds, no matter what shifts in culture, that cannot be broken. So there is no need for this white ethno state, or it's never based off of white nationalism at all.
Yeah,
it's happened to be right at the founding.
The thing is, the people who keep insisting that, they're reading between the lines, and I'm like, but every line says we are a country built on principles and not on a specific. You're like, yeah, but you gotta read between the lines. I'm like, yeah, well, you read between the lines, and you've got like 3 points. There's like, I don't know, hundreds that say otherwise. So
something that may not be implied there. You're interpreting it to your own perspective.
Yeah, if you were to stack them together, like, okay, here's all the evidence supporting the idea that the U.S. is not based on a specific race, but is based on the founding principles. And here is the list of your evidence showing that it's just for whites. It's gonna be a pile of sand versus a mountain. It's not even.
Yeah. So specific forefathers. Yeah, some of them had slaves. Some of them wrote in a pro-slavery or whatever they're discussing. But overall, the founding of the country had nothing to do with protecting slavery. It has nothing to do with any specific race. Never has. It's because we're a civil union, not a racial union. And back when we were founded, if you went off the idea of racial union, whites were most definitely not unionized. I mean, almost everybody hated the Irish for some reason. Italians and French didn't get together. In fact, we had a fight against the French a little before that, before Britain decided to invade. And then the French decided, you know what, we're done fighting, let's ally so we can get rid of the British.
All right, so I said something, and that was my mistake. I said the first part of this clip was he was talking about the Unite the Right. That is not the case. This was all around the El Paso shooter. This was all taken from the same stream. Wow.
What, like his manifesto?
What?
Did the El Paso shooter have a manifesto?
So I think that he was talking about the white. He was talking about conservatives after the El Paso shooter denouncing white supremacy. So, because he's talked about, I used to believe in white supremacy, but I don't anymore. He's made that claim on several of these streams. It's like, they're just trying to use what I said years ago against me. This was in August. August or September, right? This is August, I think.
So the issue is, I don't like holding people to stuff they said 10, 20 years ago. Someone tweeted out a stupid joke or something, whatever, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, they're not like, the views change over time. And unless they continue to hold that view, you can't hold it. Yeah.
You know, if within just a couple of years ago, you've had a very strong ethno-nationalist message, and it's what you've been putting out, and now all of a sudden you say, nope, I changed my mind, and yet you still hint at ethno-nationalist sentiment, what do you expect people to believe?
Yeah, it
like
is very bizarre.
Down to Argentina, and every once in a while raise his right hand and say, oops, it's just habit, sorry. Ignore that.
Yeah.
They're not. They're still a Nazi.
So I'm going to play the rest of this clip because he's talking about the El Paso shooter, and some of the other stuff is like, yeah, this is...
I wasn't calling that guy.
And Dinesh D'Souza. President Trump should make a speech talking about the roots of white nationalism and white supremacy. When the fuck did you get here? 1990? You know, Dinesh D'Souza. I'm sorry, anybody sounding like Dinesh D'Souza signed the Constitution of the United States or the Declaration of Independence?
No, why does that
I don't
matter?
remember that. I remember Dinesh D'Souza got Sam Francis's career destroyed because he's a fucking liar. Sorry for the language, but really, Dinesh D'Souza is going to roll up to our shore.
So I didn't look up Sam Francis.
Smelly open defecation India, and he's going to tell us that Robert E. Lee was a racist and our ancestors were villains as long as they were Democrats, So Dinesh D'Souza can go to hell, and all these people can. So I understand that President Trump is under a lot of pressure. Whew, a little hot. He's under a little bit of a gamer moment there. Kid 2000 says it's very refreshing to see some people stay consistent and not take a self-defeating defensive position. Much appreciated. Keep it up. Well, thanks. Yeah, we just can't do that. We can't play this game of I disavow white supremacy. And notice how the claws come out. All these pussies, frankly. And again, sorry for the language, but that's what it is. People like, who's this Matt Walsh guy?
Pussy thing to do to denounce white supremacy.
And, he's always like this. And when a white person does a shooting, suddenly he's a big tough guy. I think these.
I will clarify. When he says that he doesn't believe that anymore, he talks about the Unite the Right rally. So in his more recent videos where he's fighting back against Shapiro, he says, "Oh yeah, that was back when I was at the Unite the Right." And I'm like, that's why I thought the first clip was from that event. And then I'm like looking at the details on the description. I'm like, no, this was all from when he was talking about the El Paso shooter. This is something recent. He has not denounced this, but he did delete these clips from those original videos because I looked through them. I was looking for his clip on this, and these are edited out. I'm like...
one comment that he said when he was talking about Dinesh D'Souza really didn't make any sense, and it didn't even sound political at all. It just came out as outright racist.
Well, yeah.
But not to comment about Dinesh D'Souza and, I don't see your name on the Constitution when you get here in the 90s. But then he said, all these white guys are your enemies, as long as they're Democrats.
Yeah.
But obviously, Dinesh is a Republican.
Yeah.
He's pointing out all the fallacies. I got one of his latest books.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's about basically the current slave plantation.
Mm-hmm.
How it's morphed and it still exists.
But he's been making that argument for like almost 10 years now, and it's come up in different forms, and he's found new information and so he comes out with a book. So this is new. Hey, here you go. Here's more. It just keeps piling on.
Comment, was he actually stating that he's pro those Democrats because they're white?
I did not pick up on that, but yes,
that what it sounded like. It's like, oh, you're attacking the Democrats because they're white, but attacking Democrats would be the political thing to do. Bringing in that they were white is the racist thing, and he's making that statement against a guy from India. That's where I thought he was supposed to be conservative or Republican leaning, but that kind of statement means, nope, it's just about the race, not the politics.
Wow, yeah, that makes sense, and there's more in this clip to kind of
white racist scumbags should get public executions, and we should hang them and be brutal. That's the only thing that's going to stop these people. Yeah, you're a real tough guy. You're a real fucking tough guy, sorry for the language, disavow the language, but, that's what it is, these people. It's a very latent hatred for their own people, for white people, if it's not their own people.
So...
Well, that's right there.
Yeah, I'm like... So, he's saying that a person who went on a mass shooting spree should be killed and publicly executed. And he's saying, how dare you say that about a person with your same race? And I'm like, what?
That's like all the BLM people that were applauding that guy who went and shot 5 cops.
Yeah.
It was a horrible thing. Why would anybody applaud that or say, hey, good, at least we know what racial lines you're on? It's stupid. That's exactly what the United States does not support.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I have never really seen much of that.
Yeah, and most of the people I talk to, I send them this, and I'm like, dude, and some of them it's right-wing watch. I'm like, did they doctor the video? Is this a deep fake?
That sounds
can you explain why there are sections of the video there, like it's a live stream and there are jump cuts where these fit right in? Like,
basically, his whole statement there is, if you don't support white people, then you have a hatred towards white people, and no matter what they do, you should be there to support them.
all right, and it goes on.
Well, Shabbos Goy, race trader. That's what it is, folks.
Race trader. What? Who says race trader? Oh, are the right is right wing? Are right wings known for calling people race traders? Is that a conservative thing to call somebody a race trader? Wait, no. Who does that? Racists and Democrats and leftists. Yeah, it's a. They call Candace Owens a race trader for being a Republican instead of a Democrat. You're like,
the group identity thing. He's in identity politics. He just happens to think he's in a large enough group to be protected, since whites are still a predominant part of the country. But does that matter? There's a shooter out there. You condemn it and say, we need to figure out better ways to cut this out. Get rid of these shooters.
I know some people don't like to use that expression, but it's totally true. Throwing his own people under the bus. He hates white people. Nobody else.
White people. What? Because he was attacking a guy who murdered people in mass. He hates white people because he criticized this guy and said he should be openly executed. He hates white people. He hates all of them. Not just this one guy who happens to be white. He hates white people.
Nobody else talks like that about their own people except for white people, and it's gross. This white racist scumbag should be hanged in public, and we should be brutal about it. Yeah, okay. Keep typing on twitter.com, faggot. Faggot pussy. Race trader. You work for Jews, you know? That's gonna get me in trouble.
This is the guy they're saying, like, oh, hey, he represents our movement. He should debate Charlie Kirk.
No, I wouldn't debate that guy either.
Yeah.
What? I mean, that's about worse than Richard Spencer.
It is Richard Spencer. There's video clip like there. I didn't pull that up for this one. He was on a thing with Richard Spencer, and they're basically repeating each other. It's like it's almost like a feedback loop. And he's like, oh yeah, well that used to be how I was, and I used to be on that, and I disavow that now. And I'm like, this was August. You're saying the exact same things. You haven't changed one bit. You just hit it better. It's like, yeah, it's like a drug addict saying, oh, I'm like, no, you haven't recovered. You just hide it better. And that's one of the guys that these people promote as but I've got to take a leak. I've been drinking a lot of water, but then again, my mouth has been dry. So I'm gonna step away for a second to go do that.
Okay. Yeah, let's take a 1 minute pause. I need to get some more water. I just ran out.
Where am I at in the stream, man?
Wait a minute.
Right. No, I'm just trying to make sure. Yeah, whatever. That's gonna be the camera's gonna be staring at the light. Sorry. Maybe I can push the chair up or. All right, let's stare down at the chair for a second. Or the ceiling, maybe. There, that's better. All right, I'll be right back.
This then. That was a good intermission. All watermelon Jolly Ranchers. Oh, he's washing his hands. You know what that means?
All right. I'm back from outer space. Okay, let's see.
Okay, wait. So what are these? What did you say the term was again? Groypers?
Groyper is what they call themselves.
Groypers?
Groye. Wait, no. Pers. So there's no E in between the Y and the P.
Groupers. What I typed in.
Groy, Gr0Y, Pers. Okay. Okay. So, and for those people who's like, oh, well, that was months ago, he's changed. He does it again in this clip, although I don't. Let's see if I've. Let me switch this out here. I will be playing it at double speed here, so I can actually find.
Because you know what? If we try to enforce Christian morality, well, the left would try to enforce their thing. It's like the left is already trying to use government to enforce their thing. Ben Shapiro says, well, everybody should just agree that we shouldn't use government. Well, the left does not agree. The left does not agree. And there's a lot more leftists than there are right-wing people, or classical liberals, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and that's right there. He just exposed, his idea is, hey, slavery exists. Don't abolish slavery. Let's just make sure that we're the slave owners. It's the same type of argument as well, they're going to use the government against us, so let's just make sure that they don't get to use it, but we're going to use it to oppress them. And that's why I'm like, yeah, these guys are no different
we saw
from
that in
their
the last election. We saw that in Virginia 2 days ago, yesterday.
opposition.
Well, you want to use government to promote Christianity, and they want to use government to promote degeneracy. Yes. At a certain point, you have to take a stand. You have to take a courageous stand. You have to have moral conviction and say that we are going to create the society that we want. Not a society where it's a free-for-all and anybody can do anything and evil people are allowed to abuse the system.
Welcome to America. We have lots of sponsors. I'm very grateful for my sponsors. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact I offer my sponsors a way to reach my audience. I'm very proud of them. I think their products are good.
So he might not say
it. Money at the same time. Great. I'm out to make money. I like money.
Clip that.
Congratulations. The free market economy.
I'm out to make money. I love money. I'm all about money. Okay, man, your words. I didn't say that. Is Ben Shapiro going to clip this in his next speech? When he does his next monologue about me, is he going to say, Nick Fuentes said about me that I love money and I'm out to make money? Isn't that so anti-Semitic? Is he going to do that for the next one? Really? You're supposed to be some kind of political activist or something? Don't you have any kind of deep-seated concern about the country? I'm out to make money. I'm out to make money. I'm trying to create a platform for advertisers to reach consumers. That's not what I'm about. I've gotten big advertisement offers. I've gotten big money offers to do all kinds of things, and I turn them down. The only people who fund my show.
So that's one thing, and again, it's like, well, this is as far as I said. It was like, yeah, the socialist aspect is something I haven't heard anybody else talk about, but I was like, so it sounds just like sour grapes or just jealousy, and like. Because he built so that they go into his financial backing and how he paid for everything.
I was gonna say maybe Groypers are the disenfranchised white America, or the ones that feel disenfranchised, rather than saying I'm fine.
I think these are just the rebranded guys from Unite the Right, the guys who went to Unite the Right and were like, well, that blew up in our face, and then like, well, we can relabel ourselves and rebrand it. We just add a rosary. Now we're a new movement. Now we're preserving Christian values in it.
Oh, that guy with the rosary when he's coming up to ask the questions.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are Catholic, and I don't want to get into that in this stream, but E. Michael Jones is Catholic. He talks about logos. He's written books on that, and a lot of his articles in the magazines and stuff are about Catholic theology and all that sort of stuff. But I've been talking to these guys, and I've also been talking to Catholics. So I don't subscribe to Catholicism at all, but every time I point out something that is in the King James Bible, but is also in the Catholic Bible, that would disagree with what they say and would disprove what they're saying, they refer to something called tradition, or not human tradition. What they say, something else tradition, holy tradition.
Yeah, it's the idea the Pope or the sentiment of the church overrides the original word and can add or extrapolate or take away part.
Yeah. So what they're saying is the Bible is the Word of God, but you can't understand the Word of God without holy tradition. And only with holy tradition can you understand what God actually meant by what's in his Bible. And I'm like, well, we know, or at least we can agree, that the Bible is the Word of God. how do you know that holy tradition is of God?
No, they don't. That started before the printing press. It was because most people could not read or write, and getting your hands on an actual scriptural text was kind of tough. That was more associated towards a parish or
Yeah.
a commune, something like that. To church organizations, because they'd have to assign a monk to sit there for years and scribe a new Bible.
Yeah.
So they were the interpreters of this Bible to the rest of the masses.
Yeah.
Printing press came out, everyone started learning to read and write, so they had to come up with a new way to still control.
Yeah.
If you just read it themselves, what good is this bishop? Nothing. I can read that myself. So they had to come up with a new ideology that said, just because it's written this way, that's the foundation, but the church can express it in another way or add to.
Yeah, so the reason I bring that up is because that right there is itself the idea that nothing is true objectively. Everything that is true is ordained by some authority figure. You can't know anything for sure by comparing the Bible to itself or by comparing other things to the Bible. No, you have to go to an authority figure, and the authority figure determines what is true. And then you use that as your new standard. And that right there is like, that says there is no truth without some person telling you what is true.
That's their mentality. I got into a couple of Discord discussions a few weeks ago, and a guy said the same thing, where I told him I don't attend a church right now. I haven't found something that I particularly can get invested in, but I read my Bible, and what it means to me is how I try and live my day to day. He's like, well, that doesn't work. You can't be saved like that. You have to have someone telling you what the Bible means. I'm like, what? I have eyeballs. I can read it. I'm a fairly intelligent guy. No, you still need somebody in charge of a church who gets divine inspiration from God to tell you what's in there. That's the only way you're going to be saved. I'm like, that's not even scriptural.
No.
I mean, that is just what is ingrained, that their authority, based off of, being whatever this religious ideology, is derived from this other higher authority, which is not necessarily of God. It's supposed to represent God, but it is a man's higher authority.
Yeah.
It just represents the Bible in whatever way suits them.
And
the exact put his 99 thesis on the door and said, this is baloney.
Yeah. And that's what I said. But the reason that is important to what these guys are doing, and a lot of them are Catholics, and a lot of people who have been in favor of these guys without knowing what they're actually standing for. A lot of people who I've seen, like, oh yeah, they're just asking legitimate questions, and they know what they're doing, and Charlie Kirk is full of it. He's a phony and a fake, and I keep asking, what does Charlie Kirk do that's fake? Everything that he thinks and says, he says it in front of people. There is no, he says something in front of people and then does something behind the scenes. If this is something he does it. So, but, alright, I kind of went on a tangent there. Trying to bring it back. These people, what I noticed, the people who are kind of blindly supporting the Groypers and Fuentes and E. Michael Jones, they all are Catholic. And once I started debating Catholics on various other things and the holy tradition thing, and I was like, wait, you guys all believe this holy tradition thing, and there can be no truth without it?
Yeah.
That's how these guys get into power, because they are authority figures. E. Michael Jones puts himself as a Catholic authority.
It's not based off of logic or just thought process or discussion. That's why I've noticed that Fuentes guy keeps bringing up we need to do this for morality, but what he's saying isn't necessarily moral.
Yeah. He puts himself as a moral figurehead, and because they have been taught and they think, okay, the way you find truth is some authority figure tells you what is true. These guys are using that to perpetuate these kinds of messages. And I'm like, man, that is a backdoor into a security program.
Oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's ridding of a...
Yeah, that is essentially a rootkit that people people are like, oh, I've got my antivirus software. I've got all my, and you're like, dude, this guy's got he's got access to get into your brain, and you don't detect him until it's too late, because you've got that's core, that's foundation to everything you believe. He's using that to smuggle in his malicious software. That's ridiculous. And it's something they can't get rid of, because it's without that there is no Catholicism. And I'm like, wow.
It would turn Protestantism. That's exactly why the Protestant religion popped up. They encourage people to go read it on their own and ask questions.
Yeah.
But so part of what I thought may have been a discrepancy in interpretation is just my lack of knowledge on these guys. I had only watched a little bit from him, but first stuff that you look up just sounds kind of normal.
Yeah,
sounds like
the first, just the regular questions. You're like, there's the hint of that seems odd, but hey, maybe their heart's in the right place. They just don't know how to ask questions, and they're just
my initial impression.
Yeah, so I can see that, but there are a lot of people who are kind of not just doing that. Like, so Paul Joseph Watson, seen the questions. Obviously, he came out with a video. He didn't outright endorse Fuentes, but he was saying, he was talking about Charlie Kirk, and he's like, yeah, these guys are exposing Charlie Kirk for not being a real conservative. And I'm like, you know about Nick Fuentes. You are coming to this conclusion. That, for me, is a problem. And again, that tying force is Catholicism. Go to Alex Jones. Alex Jones had Nick Fuentes guest host on one of his shows, and I'm like, Alex Jones, I don't know, he is some kind of Christian, and I don't know what specifically, but I highly suspect Catholic. Faith Goldie is another one. Used to, subscribe to her channel, was following our other stuff, and she comes out in adamant support of these guys, and I'm like, she knows what these guys have said, and she knows about what they say kind of on a more regular basis. I'm like, and then she's just blindly supporting. I'm like, okay. And then I saw Blonde from Beauty and the Beta kind of coming out and supporting these guys and be like, yay, Groypers. She jokes about anti-Semitism stuff on the show, and I'm like, I think this is where you cross from it being a joke into it being what you actually think. And I'm really scared for her, as far as, because I was like, yeah, once you go there, it's so really, really difficult to come back. I mean, how the Daryl Davis guy, how many years was he talking to that Ku Klux Klan guy and being best friends with him before the guy was like, oh yeah, by the way, this is bullshit. Years of being best friends with someone who's black before they're like, oh, this isn't true. It's an ideology that once it gets a hold of you,
I wonder if it's an ideology of kind of a power struggle, right? So the reason that ethnic groups exist in the first place is because it is the visual receptor. It is this thing that, whether or not you've spoken with them, you understand what their ideologies are, how they act, how they treat other people. They look similar, so your brain says at least something has to be similar.
Yeah.
And people have grown up in ethnic groups like that. That's why countries are basically all, a large part.
Yeah, and before the internet and before people started, interacting with each other as often, usually people from the same area had the same shared history. So not only was it they look like me, they also have a lot of history, and a lot of their perspectives on how the world is based on that. A lot of shared religion, similar thing. A lot of shared political. So it's a lot of things where they're like, yeah, they think and acted, but as time has gone on and as cultures have, encountered one another and started to integrate with one another, that's not the case anymore.
Well, what I was going to say is, if they are leaning towards this kind of white ethno-nationalist ideology, is it because they fear losing a status or a particular position of power? They like having some sort of feeling of being superior to others. and with things kind of melding and blending and racial identity, at least their particular racial identity on the rocks, they now have to grip towards something that is familiar, which is the Catholic Church kind of binds us. This is now a moral issue because I feel wrong about what's happening against my beliefs. Now my religion is going to be tied in with this view I have of my loss of status within the world. I'm wondering if it's kind of, that's what's binding them is.
Yeah,
I mean, it seemed to be kind
sure,
of
so I'm not sure
a fear of losing power from your identitarian group.
Yeah, so there's definitely that fear of loss, because I mean, a lot of these guys express that sentiment when they're asking their questions is, yeah, we're in charge now, but how much longer till we're no longer in charge? And that's unlike...
Well, then it's the left against the left, because if you don't do identity politics, there is nobody taking charge. It is just the overall ideology of the country. What do we stand for?
Okay, so I'm going to switch over to E. Michael Jones and get into a little bit more about the socialism angle.
Hi, my name's Dave Riley. I'm here with the Culture Wars podcast.
And I was about to say, there was one guy who was asking questions. The guy, there's a... maybe I need to link back to that. The Q&A... actually, I'm going to jump to that before... Where's the guy with the bullseye hoodie? Where was he? He was after that guy. Sorry, I'm scrolling through this other video here trying to find this other dude. Yeah, there he is. Okay, so before I get into the E. Michael Jones, I'll get into this guy, because this is the first red flag that was for me that was like, uh-oh, how are these guys saying they're socialists?
A little disruption. I want to clear this.
Oh, okay.
Is the most evil and deadly ideology.
Somebody told me that the police did something that wasn't.
Saw and enjoyed your
and actually, I'll stop doing the double speed here, because that's little... This guy talks fast, I think, in general. Or, because that was...
Politicon with Kyle
Name.
And you said during the debate that the free speech police are telling people that they can no longer do certain things.
Yeah.
Yet, as you were saying that, you had actual police prevent someone from merely watching the debate. Nick Fuentes.
Yes!
Yeah. Again,
When there was no evidence that
a
he was
little
going
too
to
much
be disruptive.
information
That's
again
me.
on top of a question.
Now, Nick has some pretty abhorrent views that I strongly disagree with.
F you.
Has abhorrent views that I strongly disagree with.
Yeah, you were cheering him on a couple seconds earlier until he said that.
Well, yeah, they were cheering him on when he said it, but then he says that, and I'm like, well, then why, like... So I guess I need to clarify. So I think Nick Fuentes is a bad guy. I think his intentions are not pure, and he has been lying in the very least. Like, he's been lying about what he wants and all that sort of thing. I think that at most is clear. Now, whether he actually is, white supremacist and wants to kill people, I don't know anything about that. But he subscribes to an ideology that is evil. And I know at the very least he's been lying and covering up that he subscribes to that ideology. But this guy is like, well, he says a lot of things that I don't agree with, and I'm like, I can understand that maybe he's trying to defend Nick Fuentes' freedom of speech, but the way he's doing it is kind of like, to me, it seems dishonest when he says a lot of things that I don't agree with. That may just be my own interpretation of what he's saying. I don't want to lump this guy. Well, I mean, this guy kind of lumped himself in with Nick Fuentes, and a lot of people are going to think this about him. He's got to know that. But when he says a lot of abhorrent things that I don't agree with, I'm kind of like, that comes off as insincere, given the next couple of parts. Well, I mean, but I don't want this to be an attack against this guy. But
Fag.
But you say socialism is the most evil and deadly ideology.
Somebody told me that the police did something. That wasn't my event this weekend.
Charlie interrupts here. But...
sure.
That said I kicked somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Okay.
Well,
yeah, he's lying right now.
So there were multiple times when he went up he was in a line to take a picture with you, and then he was barred from taking
again,
with you.
the Politicon event or whatever it was.
Your event, he was told that
now he's gonna play dumb, of
I'm
course.
confused what you're talking about.
Like Charlie Clark says, he doesn't own that, he doesn't control that, somebody else does.
I want to be sure
and
that
Nick Fuentes was kicked out of that.
Like, is the guy that believes in white ethno-nationalism?
I don't believe in that, faggot.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't believe in that. I'm like, wait a minute, this is from October. Go back to that clip that was taken out of his stream from August.
This October, like, as in last month?
Yeah, this is from the 29th.
Yeah. Okay, well then, yes. That's exactly what he believes. Some of the statements seem a little cloudy. Okay, I thought you meant last October, like a year ago.
No, this is from this is the Q&A from this October, and he says,
Oh,
I don't believe in it.
What? Fuentes guy, the original, back when he was talking about Dinesh D'Souza and stuff.
No, that was from August. That was the El Paso shooting.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that was still just a few months ago.
Yeah, and he says, I don't believe in that, and I'm like, wait, you had this radical change in viewpoint in 2 months? Okay, that's believable. I mean, and maybe he had this side of the road.
Where when it comes out of his mouth, it makes sense in his head, but then when he hears it back, it's like, oh, that's horrible.
All right.
I don't know.
I'm the troll.
I just want to make sure, because there is a guy that infiltrated our booth at Politicon that security came up to us.
That's me!
And we're not allowing this guy at the event. Maybe that's what you're talking
about. Yeah, okay. Pass it off on security, sure.
The Politicon security, an event that I don't run, they came up to me and they said, this guy made a little disruption. But I want to clear this up because
he's playing dumb.
About something I'm not totally clear.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Charlie Kirk is handling this the wrong way.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But get to your question.
If you,
he's got a lot of fangirls in here tonight, huh?
I mean, you debate socialists, and you say socialism is the most deadly ideology. Why not? If you're saying that socialism is the most dangerous, why not debate someone like Nick and like?
Yeah, and right there, I was like, there's so many people that heard this question, and I don't know if they missed over that, but he's saying, you think socialism is evil, why don't you debate Nick? And that caught me. I was like, what does Nick have to do with socialism? He's a white supremacist. Why would he saying, oh, you think socialism is the most evil ideology, why don't you debate Nick? And I'm like, what do those two things should be separate from each other, but they're always they're always together. I don't know if the intrinsic is probably the wrong word. Socialism and racism go hand in hand, apparently. Spencer was a leftist, socialist, white nationalist. The Nazis are all white, Aryan, white nationalists, socialists. And I'm like, the Democrats in the South, white nationalists. Oh, look, socialist. Are those things inseparable? For once, can we get a white nationalist who isn't like socialism for everybody?
Maybe it's because
it's the same root. What you believe in one, you gotta believe in the other, because that's
do identitarian politics. Then you're kind of more along the lines of individualist, as in what you expect out of life, do yourself. You're not expecting handouts or things from the government. And you don't want to pay the government to hand out money to other people who are just expecting the handouts. It should just be fair. I get taxed at this much so we can at least support a basic infrastructure for government, and the rest is mine. I'll do what I want with my life. I'll stay within the law and stay within the Constitution. That's about it. Don't tell me what to do, and I have no problems. But when you get into identitarian politics, because you're treating people as a group, you think of people in a monolithic perspective.
Yeah.
That is what socialism does bind in, because socialism is the monolith. It is everyone in society is now this giant block, and you all are given this equal space, regardless of your talent, potentials, who you are, how bad or good you are. You're just this tiny cog, just like everybody else. So I think socialism binds more with monolithic ideology of people, and where you keep people into arbitrary groups. That would be my best guess.
When Scott Walker.
Okay, so now getting into E. Michael Jones here, and the guy who asked the question about anal sex. All right, and it's already after 9, so hopefully we'll. I'm only gonna go to about 9:30. I've got don't want to keep you on too late, and this is So hopefully we can get through the last couple of points here, because E. Michael Jones is the other guy who was quoted by this guy, held up his magazine at the thing. E. Michael Jones is somebody that Blonde from Beauty and the Beta talks about a lot. Owen Benjamin talks about a lot, or talked about a lot when I was still listening to his. Gavin McInnes, I think, is the only person who is Catholic that is a conservative in these movements that hasn't mentioned anything about this whole thing and hasn't talked about E. Michael Jones. Because Matt Walsh, not a Catholic. Michael Knowles. So Michael Knowles and Gavin McInnes are the only people I have not heard chime in on this, and have not heard them say anything about E. Michael Jones or Nick Fuentes ever. So those are the only two that I know. Oh, Tucker Carlson mentioned something about this and was against Turning Point USA on his program, and the dude from Vince, what's his name, Vince Jones from Red Elephants was talking about. Oh, I think he was definitely talking about Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, and I'm like, yeah, it seems kind of like he was saying that, but he didn't mention anybody by name. And I'm like, even Tucker Carlson seems to be on these guys' side, and Tucker Carlson is. Oh, he's not a Catholic, though. He's like a Presbyterian, right?
No, I don't know what his religious background.
Okay, he might be another odd man out, huh? But it seems odd to see all these people who are supposedly religious chiming in with these guys. And I can understand, right, yeah, if they've just got a surface level knowledge of these guys, okay, that's one thing. But if you know a little bit more, and so we'll get into the butt guy's interview with E. Michael Jones here.
This whole situation with Charlie Kirk.
Well, first of all, what you see here is an attempt to resurrect conservatism. The conservatism that this man is trying to resurrect died with when Donald Trump got elected president of the United States of America.
All right, I'm just gonna. So the thing that keeps overlooking, and I think this is actually in the comments still. Oh yeah. So I mentioned Donald Trump is both pro-Israel and pro-LGBT. Shouldn't you and your sycophants oppose Trump and not just Charlie Kirk and his financial backers? And his response is, yes, he's making it difficult to vote for him again. But all candidates come down to the lesser of two evils. So he acknowledges that Trump...
conservatism was known as America First.
So I will say, when asked about Trump and his ties to Jewish people, like his daughter-in-law, these people like, yeah, that's not a good look, and we don't support that, and we can't support. But when they're on shows like this, or when they're in the question and answer sections and stuff like that, they sound like they talk about unwavering support of Donald Trump. Like, yeah, we're pro-Trump, we're MAGA kids. And I'm like, that's mental gymnastics on their part, from what I can tell.
Yeah, seems like it.
Okay,
continuing on. It had a whole different orientation. But the point of this conservatism is it's funded. It's funded by a certain group of people.
Yeah, certain group of people. I wonder who he's talking about. Man. Like, that clip, replace E. Michael Jones with Ilhan Omar. It's just like, you couldn't, like, if you had that quoted in a, like, who said this? And people be like, oh, that might have been Trump saying that, or this, like, oh, what, do you think it was E. Michael Jones, or do you think it was Ilhan Omar? And people are like, oh, that was definitely Ilhan Omar who said that.
Is that really?
And what we saw here, looking into this, is that the people who are funding the operation here are calling the tune. Basically, everything that Charlie Kirk said last night, is in the interest of the foundations that have been funding him.
Okay, so that's something they've claimed about Charlie Kirk. They've claimed it about Ben Shapiro and all the guys who work at the Daily Wire, and they've also made similar claims about Steven Crowder. Although for some reason they were less adamant about crashing Crowder's event. Not quite sure why. There was some in the Q&A session, but and he handled it pretty tactfully. I don't think he was catching on that these guys were kind of with this group and trolling, but he just gave him straight up answers, and they didn't seem to really fight him back on anything he was saying.
Yeah, but he's mostly just self-funded.
Yeah, mostly self-funded. He does have some sponsors like the guns and
Walter.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
Walter
Warner
and a couple others, suppliers that he's talked about on his show, and now Black Rifle Coffee. But when they talk about Charlie Kirk and Shapiro's, they always mention their backers, and their backers are determining what they're saying. And it's like...
But this is an argument that the right uses against the left.
Yeah.
Or like Democrats, or, well, Hillary was funded, and so-and-so was funded. Does that mean anybody who's funded you just don't trust ever on any side, period?
Yeah. The other thing is, which came first? Was it these people went out to these events and were saying these ideas, and the financial backers are like, I like what this kid is saying. He's got moxie. This is somebody I'm going to support.
that definitely sounds racist to me. I'm in support. That sounds pretty white. Let's give them some money. What is going on?
Well, that's what these guys are kind of implying, is that these guys dictate the message of what Charlie Kirk, and is like, the biggest problem I see with that, if that were true, all one needs to do is fund somebody, give them millions of dollars or billions of dollars, and people will find them. People will follow them blindly, even if they're saying things that are not true or that they don't believe themselves. And I'm like, then what the hell is up with Fox? Or Vox, not Fox, Vox. They get hundreds of millions, and their subscribers not matching.
No, they're
the people who watch their views, they get super hard ratios. The number of people who watch it are most likely, more than likely, people watching it to make fun of it, rather than people who actually believe their stuff. But they're funded by Universal and all this sort of stuff, and I'm like, if all you needed to do was pump money into something to get people to grow your movement, every company would be doing this. And yet, they start these things, and they flounder for years, and they become money pits for these companies. And yet...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not quite sure what this guy is saying. I don't think I like his policies or where he's standing on this particular issue. But he's funded by Home Depot, so I'm all for it. Who does that?
Yeah.
General populace is just trying to listen to what's coming out of your mouth, or they take their advice from mainstream media. They're not listening to these type of debates to begin with.
Yeah, so the mainstream media thing, that kind of has more weight, because it's like, this is the only source of people's information. People who follow Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, they don't get their information solely from those two sources. These are the people who get their information from alternative media, and they're verifying everything, and they're going and checking HuffPo, and they're going and checking CNN, and they're comparing them. These are the people who are questioning what is being told to them. And yet, people like E. Michael Jones are kind of like, oh, people only follow Shapiro and Kirk because they only get their information from those two guys. It's like, if that was the case, who they're being funded by kind of is like, okay, yeah, it's a propaganda machine. That's what they're basically claiming Shapiro and Kirk are. They're propaganda machines. And like, that works only if the propagandist is the only one. If there's no competition, propaganda works. When there's competition, propaganda doesn't work.
Yeah, it's just your opinion.
So, all right.
So, this was covered in an article in the International Business Times. Who are these people? Well, first of all, we have Bernard Marcus, big funder of the Turning Point USA operation. Okay? Who is Bernard Marcus? He's the head of Home Depot, a predatory operation.
Yeah, I don't know who this other guy is. Nobody really talks about this other guy, but
his partner.
Yeah, the other guy's the partner of Home Depot.
Donates to Democrats.
Just based on the picture, I'm gonna vote not a Jew. Doesn't look Jewish to me.
One of the founding partners was more conservative and voted or donated towards Republican.
Yeah. So this guy, the other guy is not conservative, and he donates to Democratic causes and left wing causes. So yeah.
I mean, they each their own money, and it looks like they're buddies and they're friends, but they started a massive company. They did well. Donate to whoever they want.
Yeah.
If that company is donating to both sides,
but
they have split, then what?
Well, I just something that was like that just occurred to me is like, oh yeah, the other guy's definitely not a Jew. Otherwise, Michael Jones would have brought up that he was a Jew. Yep. So the other guy's definitely not Jewish. So okay.
That basically sets up near local hardware stores and drives them out of business by undercutting their prices.
Welcome to capitalism. That's what happens.
And that's for the benefit of consumers. Always has.
How dare you undercut other companies' prices, which means that consumers are paying less for the same thing. How dare you, sir? Or cue the Greta Thunberg. How dare you? You have stolen my socialism.
Stolen my hardware and my lumber.
It's like, wait. These guys... Now, the question that was like, okay, there's the socialism question the guy asked that I'm like, wait, what does that have to do with Nick Fuentes? Yeah, okay, is Nick Fuentes also a socialist? I haven't seen Nick Fuentes talking about socialism. I have seen both of these guys talking about money and capitalism, and capitalist enterprises and capitalism as if they are bad things. And I'm like, well, what's the alternative? Do you think Michael Jones is a mercantilist? Is he a feudalist, maybe? What monetary or social or what kind of economic system do you think these guys would back? They seem to be very adamantly against capitalism. And I mean, they don't talk about cronyism, like government support of industries and things like that. They just talk about regular things that would be in the realm of regular capitalism. And it's like, yeah, if you've got a superior product and you go in there, you're going to beat out the competition.
Overall, it's beneficial for society as a whole. Why have the entire village digging ditches with their hands so that way they can plant crops? You can have one guy with a horse and the proper tools do that. Everyone else can go find something better to deal with their time. Yeah. Now you've got all these artisan jobs, and then later those cheap artisan jobs get taken over by a better process. Mm-hmm. Now they can do something else. Anytime people don't have something to do, the industrialist types will go find something new to create and build. The way it works. Now you don't have to worry about making just plain cotton T-shirts. Pick them up at Walmart. Now you can actually make something else.
Yep. And now it's gotten to the point where you can custom design your own T-shirts. You don't have to go buying from.
Yeah.
You can made to order T-shirts for yourself. That's a thing.
Well, that benefits everybody.
Well, what else is Bernard Marcus involved in? Well, he's one of the three people who are responsible for the fact that the United States doesn't have an agreement with Iran, a nuclear agreement.
The United States doesn't have a nuclear agreement with Iran. Not because Iran wasn't holding up its end. Not because Donald Trump said that's what he was. He didn't like the deal to begin with. No. The reason this guy, this Home Depot guy. I don't know how rich the Home Depot guy is, but Donald Trump is a billionaire, and one of the selling points was for him to be president is that he can't be bought because he's already got more money than he can ever spend in his lifetime. Oh,
not gonna bribe him.
Home Depot guy, he's the one. He's got some way. He's got some dirt on Trump, or he's got some way. He's got a lot of money.
Give you all the your next hotel if you get rid of that nuclear deal.
Bernard Marcus, Sheldon Adelson, and Paul Singer. Three rich Jews went to...
Three rich Jews, and you're like, why did you need to include Jew in that statement? What?
Donald Trump and said, we don't like the agreement, and these three rich Jews are, in effect, in charge of our foreign policy.
Yeah, yeah, not just killed the Iran. These three guys are running our entire foreign policy because they're Jews. That, I mean, did I misunderstand here? Did I take this out of context? Because that's what it sounded like he said.
A large portion of the country was already in disagreement with the nuclear deal because we were just handing Iran millions of dollars to say, hey, don't do this nuclear research. And they're like, okay, look over there.
Yeah, okay, we're not doing any nuclear research. Just don't look in this room. don't look at that facility. No, we're not doing anything wrong. Just don't look there.
Yeah, and then Trump's like, oh, we're going to break the deal. And they're like, you stop giving us your money and we're going to take these nukes.
Wait, no, what nukes? We don't have those yet.
We'll do something. Bad deal to begin with. We're just handing money over to a country that's trying to exploit us out of terror. It's a horrible deal. It's like paying money to a bully or the mafia.
How does this play out? Well,
money.
People start asking Charlie Kirk about Israel. What about Israel? And he's a fervent defender of Israel. Says that it's the only democracy in the Middle East. And then the real punchline is we should support Israel because Israel supports LGBT rights.
All right. And I think that's going to be the last thing we talk about on the stream. It supports LGBT rights, right? So it sounds like E. Michael Jones was against that. It's like, wait, so they don't have the right to be LGBT? I mean, granted, that might be taking his words and kind of twisting them. I can understand that. But a lot of these guys will say supports and advocates LGBT. And they talk about Charlie Kirk had that Rob Smith guy who is gay up on the platform. And they talk about how at other events he's had a drag queen person. And I'm like, you say supports and advocates. What has Charlie Kirk said that advocates homosexuality? What has he said that says people should be gay? That would be advocacy, is people should do this thing. Like, I'm an advocate of capitalism. I think people should participate in capitalism. I'm an advocate of being Christian. People should be Christian. I tolerate other religions in the U.S. because I think they should have the freedom of religion. Does that make me an advocate of Catholicism? Does that make me an advocate of Islam? Does that make me an advocate of atheism? Do I support these other religions other than Christianity? Do I support Wicca because I think people should be allowed to participate in that? And that's what these people were claiming. Oh, he's broadcasting it, he's normalizing it. I'm like, I may not know the full story here, but I'm pretty sure LGBT people existed before Charlie Kirk was alive. I don't think he normalized them. I don't think he made them before Charlie Kirk was a thing.
With this original
had marriage rights.
They're the only democracy in the Middle East, and that's true.
Yeah.
But also in other countries in the Middle East, they kill.
Yes, they actively kill. Yeah. They kill people who are gay, and they give mandatory sex transitions. Mandatory gender reassignment surgery. It's mandatory in certain Muslim countries. Like, hey, you can't be gay, you're getting the surgery, so then you're no longer gay.
Oh. I don't even like thinking about surgery. That just seems so brutal.
Yeah, so that's the reason he says Israel, because, like, yeah, hey, that's a shining light of decency in that region that is not a decent region. And
wouldn't that be the same thing as having a donator? You believe in the Republican political party versus any other political party, so you donate some money and say, you know what, I'm going to support this group because I like what they do.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with how much we're spending on stuff because that's taxpayer money. That's not just the government.
Yeah.
They're stand out for nothing. They need to be frugal, but
Yeah, but then again, we don't need... So granted, all of our foreign aid, all of our... It's in the tens of billions. If we cut our military budget in half, if we were able to do that, that would do... that would do... Wait, let's see. Because it was nearly 700 billion. So if we just got rid of 300 billion, it'd be like 10 times all of our foreign aid. As far as money going back in the taxpayers' wallets or money being used for other things. That seems like that should be kind of more of a push for these guys. Like, 30 billion is a lot. Nowhere near 690 billion we're spending on our military. That's absorbent. That's more than needs to be spent on a military.
So if we can our military spending by like 7-8%.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It seems like that would be more of an area of concern than whether or not Israel gets foreign aid. Granted, I don't think anybody should get foreign aid. Granted, we are destitute. We can't afford to go into debt to pay other people. But it seems like there are areas where, like, there's a lot more wiggle room within the military budget than there is within the foreign aid budget. A lot more wiggle room in some of these other areas. If your concern is money, be still, $3 billion out of gone, or $3 billion taken out of the military budget wouldn't be noticed. Like, hey, we reduced the military budget by $3 billion. Nobody knows. You reduce the foreign aid by $3 billion. People are gonna notice that. So it's kind of that seems like granted, maybe they haven't thought it through that way, but yeah. So the LGBT thing, coming back to that more specifically, I did not hear Rob Smith or Charlie Kirk ever say people should be gay, or we need more people to be gay, or we need more gays. And if you look at what the entire purpose of that culture war event that he was holding, the message was people who are gay can be conservative. They don't have to be forced to be Democrat. They don't have to be forced to be progressive. That was the message. They can be gay and conservative, or they could be gay and progressive. The message was not that we should normalize homosexuality, or that we should have more people become homosexuals, or that homosexuality was a good thing. It was these people exist. We would rather have them on our side than all of them being on the left. It's like, if they want to be on our side, it's like, okay, you can join the club. I mean, no butt stuff, but you can join the club. You can vote for conservative things. You can promote Donald Trump. You can. That was it was saying, yeah, it's acceptance, not advocacy or support. And that's what I've seen. I mean, I haven't seen. And yet, E. Michael Jones will talk about him.
So Israel is a supporter of homosexuality.
This does have a couple of different dimensions to it. So this whole trolling Charlie Kirk thing because of his...
He does say something else
fraudulent student loan debt. Full of self...
So this is something that's kind of a minor point. He talks about Betsy DeVos and the student loan thing.
The whole for-profit sector.
So I do have that pulled up. This is NPR. Very leftist. Talks about the whole situation. Mentions here in a video statement, the education department said loan servicers have mistakenly billed about 16,000 students and parents. The borrowers have since been reimbursed, according to the video message. So she got fined. This is one of the complaints that E. Michael Jones presents against Betsy DeVos. So not only is she a Jew, but she's like, oh, she's a Jew that's defrauding people. And it's like, yeah, the education department was fined $100,000 because of this slip up, and yeah, this is going to put people in a financial burden and all that sort of thing. There's a mistake, has been remedied. What does that have to do with her funding, her using her personal finances to donate to Charlie Kirk's? And that seems like a complete non sequitur on his part. But also what his claim about her is she's defrauding people and she's taking their money. And I'm like, gave it back, had to pay a fine. righted the wrong.
Pretty typical.
That so
that even though there are all these different, basically out of nowhere, and has been news.
Yeah, so let me see. He says something else about the homosexual thing.
Drain. You have sodomy and you have usury. So last night he's not on by himself. He's on with Rob, and Rob is a black guy, and he's just full of self.
Wait. All right. He's on with Rob, and Rob is black. Wait, we were just talking about homosexual. Why does it matter that he happens to be black? To me, that. All right.
But that doesn't have to do with anything.
Right.
Confidence because he's a soldier and all this other type of stuff, and he's promoting sodomy. Sodomy and usury go together. Who said this? Dante said it. Both sodomites and usurers are in the same circle now. It's pretty close to hell for this group of people. Why are they related?
Dante's Inferno.
Because sodomy takes what is fertile,
it's not scripture at all.
namely sex, human sexuality, and makes it sterile.
Yeah, there. So here's what he's
namely related. Because sodomy takes what is fertile, namely sex, human sexuality, and makes it sterile.
Mm-hmm.
And usury takes what is sterile, namely money, and makes it fertile through usury, through compound interest.
Yeah, right there. So I agree with the first half of that.
His brain lost track of what he was talking about. And he started saying words. That last half made no sense.
Money is fertile with or without usury. The usury is bad, and it doesn't make money fertile. It makes money worth less. It's usury increases the money supply without increasing production. That's an overall drain on people's wealth.
Yeah, that's inflation.
Yeah. Money by itself compounds on it. So yeah, money just allowed to circulate freely, people's wealth will compound because people are trading. And granted, that's a whole nother. The way it is, you trade once, you benefit. Both people benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't trade, right? That's the classic libertarian example, or anarcho, or Austrian economist talks about this. You have a pencil in your hand or a pen in your pocket. Somebody says, "I'll give you $1 for that pen." If you need the pen, you're not going to sell that pen for $1. You're going to tell the guy to go buy his own. If you're like, I don't need this pen, that $1's more important, you will trade for that $1. That person values your pen more than you value that $1. You value that $1 more than you value that pen. Both people walk away better off. Money allows for these exchanges to happen all day, every day, around the clock. The more so since both people walk away from that exchange better off, the more times people exchange, the more better off people are. So if you can increase the number of transactions that people make within a set amount of time, everybody is going to be better off the more trades that are made. That's how it compounds. You can have $100 circulating between the same 100 people, and the more they trade, the more wealth they will actually get. The money is going to mean some people may have more money at the end. Some people may have less money at the end. More people will have more than what they started with at the end. That's how trade works. The more trades that occur, the more people have that they're satisfied with in the end. And sorry, that's just a little side tangent. Usury is not important. Usury actually hurts that process. All right.
As Shylock said to Antonio, my ducats can copulate faster than Laban's ewes and rams. I cover this in detail in my book, Barren Metal, which is a history of capitalism. And capitalism,
right
according to the great Catholic economist, Heinrich Pesch, who says this in his Lehrbuch der Nationalökonomie, he says capitalism is state-sponsored usury.
Yeah. That for me was the death nail in the coffin. I'm like, yeah, there is no alternative for them to go to other than socialism when they've got those kinds of the state-sponsored usury. That's what capitalism to these guys, and that's what they've been telling all the people who follow them kind of blindly and look up to these guys as their I'm like, man, I said the gay thing was gonna be the last, but I found this in between, so I was like, okay, maybe. All right, so, sorry, another little side tangent. I'm gonna get to the last thing he says about the homosexuality though, but I was like, yeah, that because I watched this whole thing. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's kind of undeniable. Yeah, these guys are socialists, and like I said, it's been two weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks since this whole thing started, since I caught wind of it, and I've been talking to these guys, and I've been posting on Ben Shapiro stuff, and these guys come in mass. They, you say one thing, you're like, yeah, the Groypers are Groypers are white nationalists, and then you'll get 15 people replying, oh, you just don't understand, we're just asking serious. It's like, okay, you guys are socialists, you guys, not one has rejected being socialist. And I'm like, I must have talked to like 200 or 300 of these self-proclaimed Groypers, guys who have the frog as their avatar, guys who have Groyper in their name, guys who are adamant like, oh no, what are you talking about? We're not white nationalists. Like, you're socialist. Not a response. No response to the socialist claim. No rebuttal.
So what you have here is state-sponsored usury and state-sponsored sodomy, and the man who's bringing these two plagues onto this generation of people is Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, he's bringing these.
We've got
don't
some
exist
video.
in the system as it is.
It's really. I think I might have been
Somebody outside approached.
Okay, so I guess it's after his question.
Homosexual sodomy together that are promoting the homosexual lifestyle are just as productive and contribute just as much to American society.
We realize that gays and lesbians are able to contribute to American society in the same way that everybody else is.
Now, I disagree with Rob Smith on that.
And let me tell you, when you continue doing that, okay, you realize that we are here. We are able to do everything.
Now, I know that this is absolutely ridiculous. You could probably expound on it, but how is it possible that two people coming together to commit sin with each other that cannot have children, right? They cannot have children, which grows the national economy, which grows the population, which means that we no longer need to import refugees to come over and work in a farm or something like this.
Yeah, so if every gay person in the United States was forced to stop being gay and forced to participate in a heterosexual marriage, that's like 0.5% of the U.S. population. It's not going to make a difference. If you add lesbians into that as well, then you're talking about 3% of the population. Or no. Actually, I think with maybe homosexuals is 1.5. No, it's not 1.5 and 1.5. It is... Oh, man, I know I broke down the math on this. It's about 1 to 2% that are everything else that's not lesbian and gay. But it's estimated about 5%. So the rest of the 3% breaks down into lesbians and homosexuals. And actually, I think it is like 2.5% lesbian and 5% homosexual in the U.S. Or I guess I shouldn't say homosexual because that includes both. But I mean, it's like it is. There are a lot more lesbians than there are gays, and it's more than a 2-to-1 ratio. But I don't remember the exact breakdown in math on that.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
But if all of them did happen to have sex, then you guys also include the number of people who are physically unable and all that sort of thing. The number of people who never find a match and all that sort of thing. But still, that's not going to be enough children just in the gay community alone to match what immigration is adding to the population currently.
If you had to force them into that type of relationship, for one, how could you guarantee that they would even participate in that type of relationship?
Yeah.
If they're gay, they don't want to be there. That's not the person they're attracted to. What about people who just don't want to be in a relationship, period? Should they also have to contribute to society by procreating? Yeah. Do we now have to force procreation to say this is the only way you add value? That's not a valid example at all. If they work a job and pay taxes like everybody else, then they're contributing like most everybody else.
So yeah, I mean, so this isn't
it's not population level. It's not growing the population anyways, and that's our regular hetero families.
Yeah.
Our families are kind of gone. So this has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, or at least very little. But this is an area where, because Rob Smith says, "Oh, we can do just about everything. We can contribute just as much." And I'm like, nah, not quite. Because I mean, granted, they're technically correct on this. Yes, they cannot contribute in the producing new Americans.
Yes.
Yeah, that, or at least if they're not, unless they sleep around or whatever.
However, if that was an incentive for women to have less abortions, they could be adopted by gay couples or something like that, and those kids would have a loving home because they chose to have a kid. Maybe that helps in some way. Again, it's just a tiny part of the population, so even
because if you so just looking at the area of abortion, so I mean, granted, you could probably predict that if homosexuals were forced not to be homosexual and were forced to have kids and participate in that, you're likely looking at maybe one extra million to the U.S. population. If you
which is how much.
you eliminate abortion, how many million per year is that? So it's not 1 million per year. It's right because it's 1 million total. It wouldn't
Abortions?
be sorry. Going back to the homosexual thing, I was like, it wouldn't be adding 1 million per year if like the entire homosexual community was forced to have children. No, it'd be like 1 extra million to the entire population, and then after that you'd have a couple of extra thousand per year. It wouldn't be 1 million per year
because they're not adopting children every year.
Yeah. They're not. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I'm saying if they were forced to have sex with each other. Sorry, I went back. My mind went back to
kids every year. Who does that?
Yeah, nobody has kids every year, and granted, they're gonna have maybe 2 or 3, and then stop, and then that's all the extra they've provided. So it's not. Whereas immigration is, we get about 1 million per year. Even if it was mandated that homosexuals had to participate in the breeding process, you're not gonna make up for the million people per year coming in on a regular basis.
They have no intention on saying, hey, well, if homosexuals could produce offspring or at least take care of offspring of unwanted children, then they'd be contributing, so then I'd be okay with it. It is simply because this is one sin that is not comparable to other sins.
Yeah, that's the other thing is...
You got a tattoo? Yeah, I can deal with that. You're gay? You're going to rot in hell, and you should have nothing to do with my family or my people or my race or anything. Get out of here. You're a spawn of Satan. It's kind of that mentality.
Yeah, and so much for wrapping this up. It's already 9:50, and I've got one last tangent that I want to kind of end on this. So what these guys are saying about, granted, they seem to be anti-homosexual, right? That's pretty clear, pretty obvious. I don't think homosexuality is a good thing to participate in.
Yep.
I think God designed men and women, and your best route through life is to be attracted to women or being attracted to the opposite sex, and then having a family and having kids. I think that is the best way to live life. But it is your life, and you get to choose how you use it. I don't get to dictate how you use it. And the problem that I have the most with these guys is they claim to be Christian, and they are saying, if you are gay, you're not welcome here. We're not even going to entertain you here. We're not going to hang around you. We don't want you at our events. We don't want you speaking. We don't want to hear what you have to say. And I'm just thinking, that's telling them you don't want them to ever know the truth. You want to disassociate with them in every possible way, in which case, how are they ever going to know the truth? How are they ever going to possibly come to God if you're saying, oh, you can't even join our clubs. You can't even talk about politics in an event that is designed solely around politics. You can't do that because you are gay. If you go back to the example that Jesus Christ set, he went to the adulterers, to the prostitutes, to the tax collectors, and to the fishermen of his day. They were the homosexuals and the outcasts of his day and age. He went to them where they were, did events with them that they would normally participate, invited him to the stuff that he would normally participate in, right? He was inviting them to sermons, inviting them to service. He was saying, come join me in this. It's not like oh, you guys are sinners. No, fix that first, then you can come in and I'll talk to you.
Yeah, come to God after you stop being a sinner. It's not,
yeah.
You got to find out how to get over your sin or how to get rid of your sin.
Now, yeah, his disciples were not free from sin. And those were the people he hung out with the most. Now, if E. Michael Jones and this guy had their way, they'd be like, dude, Jesus, you can't have those guys as your disciple. What are you doing? You're promoting what they're doing. You're promoting these guys' lifestyle. All you do is... actually, that's what the Pharisees did condemn him for. It's like, oh, you just go to these parties with them, and you just hang out in bars, and you, yeah.
Like that guy hanging out with the KKK, he wasn't promoting them.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got 200 people out of it, I think is a big deal to say he was definitely not in favor of it. It was his job to show them truth. They would get out. But without sitting down to talk with them, they would be in the same place. Nothing would have changed.
Yeah. So I do think what Rob Smith is doing is a sin. But I don't think that he should be precluded from these events or should be prevented from going on stage and saying things that are otherwise conservative, with the exception of his homosexual lifestyle. But again, he was not saying, oh, being homosexual is great. He's just saying, I am this. I am this. It is a part of me. It does not define me. That seemed to be the message I got out of it. Granted, I don't think he was a very good speaker. He seemed to be way too emotional. He seemed to kind of make some very not supportable arguments.
Yeah, that I was saying, almost like a cocky kind of statement.
Yeah, and you're like, that guy. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a nice guy to talk to, and all this. I don't think he's kind of the guy that you should. Yeah.
All those questions. So that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like Milo Yiannopoulos at his event was so much better at responding to people, and he just cut to the chase. He hit people with zingers. He was laughing the whole time. I was like, yeah, not a perfect man either. Still think he's doing the wrong thing. I don't think him marrying another man slightly improves the situation, because at least he's not sleeping with a bunch of people. At least he's now narrowed it down to sleeping just one person. That's a step in the right direction. Still not a good person. Still, I mean, granted, but none of us are. That's the problem. It's like, if somebody has to be without sin to come to these events, good luck holding any events. Good luck doing anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it's that he was without sin cast the first stone. It's like, yeah, if they're never allowed in the group, they're never going to change what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So it went on too long in this. I'm going to check to see if there's anybody saying anything in the super chat. Well, the BTK joined, but that was like way at the beginning. And
yeah, I didn't even bring up the stream. They don't load for me anymore, so
yeah. So that is it. That's all I'm going to say for this Monday. Happy Veterans Day, although it's probably the end of the day for most people. It's already 10 o'clock. But hopefully, hope you remembered it was Veterans Day and at least told somebody thank you for your service. Because that is people putting their lives on the line. You know, even if they don't actually stand it, they're people who said, I am willing to put my life in defense of yours, even if they never get called on that. They at least, and it's not just raising their hand and saying, oh yeah, I'd definitely take a bullet for you. No, they went to the point of saying, I'm committing the next 4 to 8 years of my life to saying when it comes to it, I'm going to be the first called, so that way you don't have to be. So thanks to all of the veterans, and I'm going to go ahead and end the stream there.